In a distant country in a castle, a summoning from another world was performed. A pair hissed throughout the large hall. In the center of the room appeared a crowd of people who did not understand where they were and how they ended up here, and a girl in a school uniform fearfully said that a minute ago she was going to school, and now she found herself in an unfamiliar place. The kingdom has been at war with demons for several years and has suffered great losses, so now it stands on the brink of a national catastrophe. Therefore, they decided to summon people from another world endowed with power to help fight the enemies. They responded excellently to the king's call. This was the 18th generation of the summoned, who were called great heroes. The crowd of strangers does not understand what is happening. They are now only interested in why they are called heroes. The people of the kingdom want to test their skills. Among the crowd is a student with a very rare skill, Divine Scythe, and upon seeing her characteristics, everyone around was very surprised and considered this skill a true achievement. The girl was surprised when the magician pointed at her, and this attracted the attention of others. Examining the people, they discovered another rare ability. They called these abilities the power they received during the transition to another world, given to them by the gods. The king exclaims that abilities cannot be given to the inhabitants of their world. It is only a blessing from the gods. These people were summoned from another world and endowed with the gifts of the gods to serve them. They are called heroes. The crowd is confused and at the same time joyful. The heroes have certain abilities, but they are summoned to a completely different world. Lady Momoko wanted to say that all this is not so, but she is interrupted by a resident of the kingdom who says that she has the skill, Divine Scythe, which allows her to erase higher demons with one sweep. The king is glad that among the rest of the people in the group, there are also many useful skills. This time the summoned truly impressed him, and one of the subordinates addressed His Majesty. Addressing him as my lord, a man in a robe introduces the summoned Norio Itanami. He says that this hero has no abilities, and in the character window the boy really did not have any. Noticing Itanami, the king only remained silent, and the young man waited in a ridiculous pose for his master's reaction. Typical city hustle. People go about their business and descend into the underground passage to the metro. The city is filled with high-rises and offices, standing one after another like large walls. Itanami Norio sighs deeply and thinks about another day lived as a corporate slave. He is pressed by the thought that the metro car is completely packed. Itanami enters the train and feels that he does not want to be here right now. Since the car was completely full, he angrily tries to push inside so as not to wait for the next train. After that, he bumped his nose into something soft, which turned out to be a plump man. He looks around to understand where he is. The man says that he is God. He could only think about his own death. God says that the boy was called to another world. He was chosen by Father Zeus, the king of the gods. Their administrator is Athena, but other gods complained about her bias against men, so a chubby man takes care of helpless matters. Norio asks again about the call administrator. The boy does not understand what is happening. God calls himself Festus and is well versed in such matters. He gives the boy an unusual ability. It was the first time Hephaestus gave someone a skill, so he prepared as best as he could, and Autonomy, nervously waiting for the gift, said that if it was something big, he was not sure if he could accept it. Hephaestus extends his hand with a sparkling sphere. This is the skill he created, Master of Perfection, and Norio is clearly not thrilled with this divine gift. The man says that this skill is very difficult to use, but assures that the boy will definitely manage it. These words scared the Itans even more. Festus extends his hand with the sphere to the young man's chest and says that he put his heart into creating the skill, Master of Perfection. The young man asks permission to use it fully in the new world for him. The boy remembered that conversation with God on the eve of his entry into another world. People panicked because the summoned had no skills. It was the first such case. Itanami returns, looks at the king, and thinks that people lack skills, so he will not be able to fight the demons. Norio wanted to ask the king something, but he shouted for everyone to be silent. Answering prematurely, Mellard's shout said that no one would be able to return. The boy did not want to ask about it, but Momoko panically repeats his words that he will not be able to send them back, and Mallard says that they know how to summon heroes into their world, but how to return them back is unknown. Only the Demon King knows the way back, so the heroes must go to the front and defeat his army. Utanami says that without his abilities he cannot participate in the war, so his usefulness is in doubt. Then Enwari asked to be given a plot of land. He wanted to change his life for the better, because in the kingdom he was good for nothing, and this request stunned the king. He does not care how far from the kingdom, because having received land he can live alone and far from them, and since there is no turning back, the boy decides to leave the slave life in the corporation. He wants to start his second life here with complete confidence, and the king's subordinates are amazed by the audacity of the summoned hero who has no abilities. Itanami stands together with the guide before the deserted desert stretching in all directions, and from now on it is under the boy's control. The man says that His Highness bought this for Navri and that he was also paid a salary. The young man will be able to live here as he pleases. To be knighted and receive unknown land meant that it was not part of the kingdom, and Itami does not quite understand that the king usually buys land for the hero. The guide says that this is good because everything outside the kingdom does not belong to him, and this place is unexplored by the kingdom, so the boy will not have to pay anything to the king. Itanami is clearly happy because now he can freely engage in farming. After these words, the man extends his hand in a pleading gesture and asks for payment for the tour he gave to the young man. After receiving the money, the conductor leaves, saying that from now on the kingdom asks nothing from him and advises him to go and do whatever he wants, regardless of whether the boy survives or dies. Saying goodbye to her husband, Nari regrets that they pay for him because the young man lacks the skills they desperately need in the war against demons. Standing before the valley of abandoned fields, I think about the new life that begins here and now. Usually someone sets off on a great adventure, gathers a team to overcome difficulties, ultimately defeats the strongest enemy and becomes famous, but the boy can do without this. Setting out on the road, Utani considers the king and his subjects quite desperate people. Walking among the deserted boulders, he thinks he can live here peacefully. He decides to enjoy life in peace in this new world. The boy does not want to meet with them anymore, so he is looking for a place as far away from the kingdom as possible. Standing on the seashore, he enjoys the sea breeze and believes that a better place cannot be found. He waved his hands joyfully, felt the breath of freedom, and loudly said that he would stay here and make this place his personal kingdom. First, Nori wants to secure water for himself so that this need does not become a problem in the future. He sat on a rock by the water and tried it for taste because he thinks it is seawater. Scooping up some water with his palm, the boy immediately tasted it and found that it was drinking water from a freshwater lake. He rejoiced when he saw the tentacles of a sea creature sticking out from under the stones in the water, then remembered that octopuses do not live in either shallow or fresh water. He is not interested in this, because right now the main thing is not to solve the mystery of where the octopus is in the so-called lake, but to urgently take care of food for the next few days. He grabbed the tentacles to pull out the creature, but on the slippery surface without grip for shoes, he began to slip towards the water. Falling underwater, Itunami emerges with wide-open eyes and with the same octopus on his head. He stood up full height and felt that the water was very salty, which surprised him greatly. Then he pondered, because when he tasted it, it was completely ordinary and fresh. Itunami decided to check his suspicions once more and scooped water with his palms again. With the octopus on his head, the man drank some water and again convinced himself that it was still drinkable. With joy on his face, he calls the new world amazing. Coming out of the water, he realized that there would be no problems with this, and removing the octopus from his head, the boy now thinks only about food. Throwing the sea creature into a container, Itunami notices that he has no seasonings, so he decides to boil the octopus in salty water. Nori wants to light his first fire. He takes a hunting knife, cuts a hole in a dry stick, and makes a notch. He will insert the stick into the indentation and begin to create glowing embers by friction, then transfer them to the prepared kindling. Itunami exhaled and gathered all his strength to put his soul into the first fire of his life. Getting to work, the boy began to spin the stick very quickly with his palms, putting in a lot of effort. The flame flared up after the first attempt to start the fire, which greatly frightened Autonomy. He did not expect such a turn of events. The underwater dweller is boiling in a cauldron over a blazing fire. Nuri prepared a plate and chopsticks. While Itanami was eating an octopus tentacle, he was only thinking about how quickly the fire caught. With a smile on his face, the boy was proud of his excellent survival skills, then remembered the words of the fire god Hephaestus, that the youth's ability is to surpass others. After thinking over the man's words, Enweri decided to make sure of something and stood before a field with many plants. Swinging his hand like a sickle, he shouts to activate his ability, Master of Supremacy. Along the trajectory of his hand's movement passed a huge streak that destroyed everything in its path. Autonomy finds no words for this. He felt that he was not capable of such a thing. Hephaestus did not give a full description of the ability with which he endowed him. After this, it seems, he understood what a good life is. He took a hoe and decided to do the same as with the sickle. He stuck the tool into the ground, and the same thing happened. Noir was surprised, and at the same time, glad about what he was capable of. He leaned down to inspect the soil after using the skill. The soil was cultivated so thoroughly that the boy had nothing extra to do. The garden bed turned out so large because he imagined how it should be. Itanami concludes that the skill he received from Hephaestus multiplies the effectiveness of everything the boy holds in his hands. The young man realized that with this ability his farm would prosper, because it came easily to him. He did not sit idly, but continued to work and planted strange seeds from the city in the garden. Nari stands by his garden beds and breathes a sigh of relief. He is proud of the work done, although he does not know what he planted. If they grow and he can harvest them, he will not have to worry about food. There are even worms in the soil. Since plants need some time to grow, the young man decided to go fishing to have something to eat for dinner. Sitting on the shore, Itanami enjoys fishing. He believes life would last longer if he worked at a company, but thanks to its Hephaestus, the guy can control the waves. The boy thanks Hephaestus for this wonderful skill. Someday Nwari will have seaweed and rice. But in a moment of dreams, the boy's fishing rod bit. He began to pull the fishing line towards himself with all his might. Judging by the tension, the boy realized that something very big had bitten the hook. A girl with long hair appeared from the water and took the bait, and Itanami clearly did not expect such a turn of events. He was also confused and pulled the fishing rod harder, not controlling the process. Eventually, he pulled out the girl, not the fish he wanted for dinner. Seeing her wrapped in fishing line, the boy noticed a tail and realized that he was facing a real mermaid. But he returned to reality. The mermaid distracted him, hypocritically calling him a peasant. She was outraged that he dared to pull her out like that, and the young man did not dare to argue with her because he considered her hostile. The girl shouts that since he caught her, he must marry her. Such are the rules of the new world. Itans were tired of this statement because the distance between them suddenly shrank to zero. In another world, he had just gotten a wife. The mermaid was upset that she was captured by a peasant. For a resident of the sea depths, there is no worse humiliation. Now she is an exiled mermaid. The loser gives their body and heart to the winner. Sitting motionless with the hook in her mouth, she cries because her autonomy caught her. This is very different from what the boy imagined. Having gotten rid of the problem in her mouth, the mermaid began to cry because now she was disgraced and could not return to how everything was. Nwari wanted to object that the girl herself got caught on the fishing hook, but she doesn't even want to hear it. Mermaids are proud and hate living creatures and people very much, and the boy has no choice. He will have to do something about it. The girl yells at him because she doesn't believe that such a siren, like a fish, could be pulled ashore by someone like him. It hurt her pride, and now she can't return to the sea. The mermaid continues to shout that this is karma and she has no choice. She must be his wife, and from now on autonomy must be responsible for her. For the young man, this is unusual. He heard that in the world where he lives, marriages between different species are a bit more complicated. Looking at the girl's tail, he is unlikely to marry. The boy thought her thoughts would not come true. She took out a bottle with an unusual liquid and began to drink sip by sip. The boy was blinded by a sudden bright light that appeared next to the girl after she drank the elixir. The mermaid's tail slowly turns into human legs. The boy looks at the girl in amazement and embarrassed, turns away because she, having received legs instead of a tail, stands without clothes below. The mermaid proudly says that she will not be happy on land, but now she has a chance to have a child, and after that the boy will not complain about her. Hitanami shouts that he understands everything and asks to be covered with something. The young man thought he was too scared and accepted everything hastily. Now he only has an empty field. The girl does not like the clothes that Nwari gave her. To her outrage, he shouted that he will not marry her if she does not want to wear pants. Standing near the flower beds, Hitanami says that he can only sew what the girl likes, but he has no home now. The young man came here to plow the field. They noticed sprouts that appeared quickly. Sprouts appeared on all the garden beds, and this greatly surprised the boy and his future wife, who was standing nearby. He wondered if this was one of the abilities that were given to him back then. If the boy was not mistaken, that person once said he gave him great power in using various tools. The girl became interested in what her recently married husband was growing. He did not know whether they were fruits or vegetables, so he decided to check here. The young man says he wants a simple life. The girl says that the owner of this land is very annoying. Itanami says he knows nothing about the life of fish. Then she said she understands that her husband just wants to live in peace. Noir mockingly confirms her confidence in her words and proudly and solemnly says to rely on her. Healing is a natural ability of a mermaid, and the girl also possesses healing magic well, but the young man did not quite understand what it was about, and this irritated the girl. With joy and pride, she tells him not to be ashamed to ask her if he does not know something. Then she began to take off her pants, which greatly embarrassed Utanami. She ran to the water, saying she would take a few things from the house, and jumped into the water, becoming a mermaid again. He had no choice but to watch and think about what had happened. He went into the forest, thinking that this mermaid really wanted to become his wife. In fact, the young man just wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of life. Taking a small axe, he thought there was no guarantee that she would return at all, and without wasting time, he began chopping wood with that axe to build a simple hut. After some time, the boy proudly looks at his creation and enjoys its simplicity, being in pleasant solitude. He is satisfied. He never thought he could build a house in just an hour, and where he calls himself a real man. Lying on the bed, he rests. Even with the abilities given to him by Hephaestus, it is still tiring. Resting after a hard day, Itani thought that his weakness might have been because a mermaid joined him, and remembering her, he decided that she still would not return. While Nuri was sound asleep on the new bed, the girl returned and her appearance woke him up. The mermaid joyfully threw herself into his arms, again without clothes below the waist, because she drank the same elixir. Autonomy, embarrassed, ordered her to put on pants again, and the girl was dissatisfied. She did not like them. He asked her where she had been all day. The boy was worried about her. She looked at him and quietly turned away. Crossing her arms over her chest, the mermaid says that in the end this is not a human matter. In her opinion, ordinary people do not care about this. When she was leaving the house, she told him that it was hard for her to cook, and the word cooking caught the attention of the Eaton. They were standing in front of a large shaitan, and the machine called the aggregate was used to create magical medicines. Shining with happiness, the girl says that by mixing a little magical power and different kinds of potions, she can prepare magical medicines with various effects and shows them to those who have no magic. Itanami asked her about medicine for a cold. The girl proudly replied that she would make it later when everything was ready. The mermaid quickly ran to get the needed thing. The young man asked her to be careful. He wanted to threaten her because of the lie. He did not manage to say anything because the girl had already returned holding a huge fish. The tuna is called boenji. Its meat has a lot of mana. Nuri does not understand anything about this. What surprises him is not the magical power but the size of the fish. The girl cuts the fish into pieces with one hand. Itanami mentally calls her hands swords. The mermaid began to cook. She brought the water to a boil, adjusted and maintained the pressure, ground the ingredient into powder. The next moment the girl shows the fish fertilizer boenji. Vari is wary that it is fish fertilizer. If the boys scattered this fertilizer on his farm, they could harvest faster. The mermaid happily got to work. Itonami doubted her intentions because she herself really wanted to help him cultivate the fields. The next day, all the plants bore fruit. They were both impressed by the effect of the fish fertilizer. The young man had previously set wooden stakes for the plants. He picked one tomato from the bush and decided to try it. Itans really love the taste of vegetables. He calls the girl a very unusual mermaid. She still looks tiredly at the young man's behavior. The girl also decided to try the tomato and picked it from the bush. After biting a piece, she quietly leaned over, and Nuri began to calm her down because such food might not appeal to mermaids. This was wrong because his future wife found it very tasty. She was surprised that people from Earth eat such products every day. The mermaid pulled a carrot from the ground to try it herself and enjoy the taste again, but a little different. Itanami stopped her and said that vegetables are different and need to be cooked first, so the girl thinks it's too much trouble and is fussy because she wants to eat more vegetables. Nwari began cooking food in seawater. The mermaids sit on a rock near the cauldron with soup. He served her a plate with the dish, so she could try how the flavors of the same vegetables combine. Itanami worries that she might not like the food he prepared, but the mermaid, having just tasted the soup, looked happy because it was very tasty. The young man, pouring himself some soup, is clearly happy about it. He thinks it would be good if it were like this every day. The girl is still savoring the food and asks her future husband if people always eat such delicious food. Itanami says that it is not quite so. It would be better if meat were added to the soup, and if possible, he asks to make some signature seasoning that would make the dish tastier. The mermaid is surprised that food, which is already tasty, can become even tastier. Nuri says that this is possible if you add spices. But first he needs to make the seasonings. He wants miso and soy sauce for cooking because he already has the meat. With a happy look, the boy says that he also needs equipment. Itanami loves the taste of these vegetables so much that he immerses himself in his mysterious world of pleasures. Suddenly he realized that he still did not know the girl's name. The mermaid who became a human was called Platy. Ido wanted to say his name, but thought that, since he was in another world, he might have to change his name. Smiling, Itanami introduced himself to Kedon and said he was glad to meet her. Loudly slurping, Platy enjoys the chopped food and looks at her husband. This is how everyday life with a mermaid begins. This is Aitanami Nari, now Kitten, who came from another world. He started a new life with a mermaid wife. Sitting on the floor, the boy rubs his back due to pain that appeared after sleeping on the floor. He noticed that Playtai was no longer in bed and thought that she had woken up earlier than him. Even if she looks like a human, she still remains a mermaid. The boy wondered if the girl could sleep on the board. He is confused because it seems as if a fish is sleeping on the kitchen board. Kitten really hopes that the mermaid is not angry with him because he caught her on the hook. To get rid of this thought, he decided to simply ask her about it. Before the boy could get out of the house, he heard Platy's piercing scream that drove away all the birds around. Kitten asked what happened. She shouted that someone was in the fields and pointed to the straw scarecrow shaped like a crow wearing a hat with wooden arms. He inhaled, felt desire and relief, and said it was just a scarecrow. He made it himself, the first scarecrow in his life. Kitten says that it is artificial, its upper limbs move, and wooden swords are attached to the fingertips, and he adds that this scares away birds that ruin the crops. She thinks it is a scarecrow that can move and scare away birds, but the boy laughs and says that it cannot be and a scarecrow cannot move. Standing in front of the girl, he tells her that if he is placed in the middle of the field, the birds will think he is a person and will not eat the crops. He did not notice that behind him the same scarecrow was waving wooden swords, and the girl told him about it. Turning around, he looks confusedly at the dance of his creation. He did not know about it because he created it as an ordinary scarecrow to scare away birds. Kitten, with his mouth agape, sees in surprise that they are really moving. The girl was surprised because she thought it was the scarecrow that should be moving. It shouldn't be like that, and looking at his hand, he wondered if it was because of his power. Platy became interested in why he was looking at his palm. Then her new husband confessed that he was actually called by a god from another world, and he is a stranger here. Kitten thought about the scarecrow's behavior and was sure that the reason was his God-given strength. The girl understood this and asked if he was. It turned out, a summoned hero, and the boy was surprised that she knew about it. Platy proudly crosses her arms on her chest and says that, of course, she knew about it. She explains that in every era, a summoning ritual was performed to call a hero from another world. But she thought about the boy, because heroes have to fight demons for the sake of humanity. The boy, with a blush on his cheeks, agrees with her words. Rolling her eyes, she asks what the hero is doing in such a place where they are now, and a happy cat sits next to the garden beds and explains that he does not want to be a hero and hides here. The mermaid also finds this strange. The boy is somehow indifferent. He is happy, holding a ripe vegetable in his hand. He listens to the girl's words. Platy notes that he seems to have belonged to a tribe that was used to living together. People from another world are usually weak, so if someone is alone, a monster will immediately kill him. The boy did not object to his wife's words. She considered him special, but he denied it, sitting next to large bushes. Holding a tomato in his hand and smiling, he reminded the mermaid that he does not live alone, but with her. Platy wondered whether he was really strong or weak. She does not understand this, and behind her the boy enjoys breakfast, a ripe tomato. Still crouching, he said that in the morning he noticed that she was going somewhere. He thought something had happened to her. This question embarrassed Platy. The boy made her very shy. It was clear that she was a little uncomfortable answering. In response, she shouts to him that she is going to the toilet, of course. She is surprised that Earth people are really so curious. Kitten only shrugged awkwardly. Then he decided to ask where she goes when she wants to go to the toilet, but he did not need an answer because he himself thought that she was going to the sea. After a short pause, he sat on the ground and realized that he needed to dig a hole for a temporary toilet, but during the struggle for survival, he forgot one important thing. A person by himself is very weak. Even a simple insect can threaten him, not to mention wild animals. Sighing with relief, he was lucky. Now he lives with Platy. Deep in his soul, the boy feels incredible relief. Suddenly, the boy remembered the girl's thoughts on this matter and how she felt about the time they spent together. Platy, who had previously gone somewhere, extended the plate, showing a starfish. Kitten inquired about the contents of the plate. The girl says that this is one of the types of sea monsters. According to her, this monster absorbs all the organic matter floating in the sea. It is also called the sea cleaner. Platy also says that these creatures can be used to purify water. The boy does not quite understand what kind of sea monsters these are. She decided to demonstrate the work of the sea cleaners, took out her pocket knife and pressed the blade to her forearm. Making a cut, she poured her blood into a container with starfish. Kitten was shocked by what was happening. Platy, with a proud expression on her face, tells him to look at the work of this sea monster, the sea cleaner. The cadet grabbed the girl by the hand and pressed the arteries on her forearm. He yells at her for what she did. Platia looks at him with an innocent face and says nothing. The boy tries to stop the bleeding. With a sad look, the boy tells her not to do that anymore because he worries about her a lot. Calming down, he admits that he is very shy and insensitive and apologizes for his behavior. Kitten is nervous about the power God gave him. He is constantly worried. When she looks at him, Platy says that she really likes this boy and denies what he said. As his wife, she now promises to always support him. Kitten is surprised and embarrassed by the girl's words. The mermaid thought he was against it, but no. She again proudly crossed her arms and said that a wife must support her husband. Smiling, he turned to her and thanked her. She did not answer, raising her nose and turned away, embarrassed. The toilet was built, another life problem solved. It was time for breakfast, as Platyfish reminded her. Somewhere far beyond the endless sea of this world, from a rocky cave, terrible sounds are heard. A demon in the darkness of the cave senses a sinister breath and something begins to approach. Platy called Giddon to show her new outfit. Instead of pants, she made herself a skirt from fabric. Yesterday she wore pants, and today she is in a new dress. Twirling in front of him, she says she tried to remake the furoshiki that was in her luggage. He hesitated, stammered, wanted to say it was not worth it, but the girl said not to worry. The mermaid easily says that a wife should be beautiful for her husband. There is nothing strange about that. The girl with a work briefcase in her hand said she left a long time ago. The boy did not understand what she meant and where she went. She listened carefully and with a lively expression told Kitten that she found a dungeon. Then the boy wondered what a dungeon was. For him, it was a place where you could find treasure, an underground shop, or fight terrible evil, and on the top floor the boss rests. He still asked Platy what the dungeon she talked about was like, and she said it was better to see than explain, so she pushed him to go faster. They came to that very rocky cave, which was in a completely different direction from their place of residence. Kedon was very tired because he had been walking to this cave for 2 hours. Platy found this dungeon while working in the field. This dungeon is in the form of a cave. Such formations occur where mana flows, although they look like ordinary caves from the outside. The young man, unsuspecting, was caught by a gust of wind that seemed to pull him into the dungeon. Hidden felt as if a large invisible animal was licking his entire face. Plate was embarrassed by his expression. It was both strange and unexpected. Energy flows and circulates through the world, but in some places the flow stops and accumulates. This place becomes a dungeon, and because of this, the saturated mana turns into a monster that is born in the dungeon and will flicker and wander on land and underwater. Kedon trembled with fear and felt a surge of warmth. A visit to such a dungeon could turn into trouble. Nothing could stop Platy because they had already arrived. Wiping sweat from his forehead, the young man was glad that his wife could handle it. Of course, passing the dungeon is difficult. She just needs to defeat them, and that is why the young man is inclined to intervene again. Pressed by the event, he did not think he should protect her, since now they were husband and wife. He asked her to wait for him. She turned around in surprise, because a minute ago he had not even hinted that he would go with her. Kitten proudly and devotedly ran up to her and said that this work was for her husband and they were going together. Entering the dungeon, they saw brick walls, not the stones that were outside. Torches burned everywhere, lighting the way. The boy noticed that the dungeon inside resembled a castle. The girl was also surprised. She stopped, noticing a suspicious ball of black smoke ahead. The mermaid remained alert and shouted to Keaton to retreat immediately. The ball turned out to be a group of magical beasts and insects that aggressively attacked them. It seems they broke free. The stunned man stands behind his wife ready to fight the demons. The boy is frozen with horror at what he sees, and Platy is shouting at the man to go while simultaneously searching for something in the bag. There were 3 test tubes with unknown contents. The girl, running, threw these potions toward the beast. Essences, like a whirlpool, began to disintegrate in the air into small particles, and only a shadow remained of them. Kitten is shocked by what he sees. The monster that was rushing at them turned to dust, but Platy says that is not all yet. There were only 3 test tubes. One froze their bodies, one was killed by an electric shock from demonic creatures, and the last test tube contained acid that dissolved the cells of every centimeter of the body, leaving only bones. Platy proudly crosses her arms and says that mermaids also know how to brew combat magical potions. It seems her husband has post-traumatic stress disorder after what he saw. When the girl moves forward and destroys the rest of the monsters, Chiton calls her the most dangerous creature, even though she just saved him. The boy thought about his wife's courage because he could not leave this task to her. In any case, he did not have the necessary tools, so he was useless in battle. In the corner by the wall, he noticed a shiny object. It was a battle sword. Grabbing the 2-handed sword, Kedon was glad because he believed that skill would increase his striking power, but when the girl cheerfully scattered his potions, he doubted he would ever use this weapon. Calling his wife, he asked her to stop for a moment because he felt he was already at the limit. said he had already won and would soon go home. Many agreed, and he moved forward again, then asked her how many monsters they had destroyed. The girl anxiously looks around in the dungeon. Everything seems strange to her, and something is wrong there. The young man listens to her words. As the girl says, everything is fine in the dungeon, but the boss is somewhere ahead. Maybe he is deep inside. Turning to face Gidan, she paraphrased Commander-in-Chief Monster as boss to make it easier to explain to her husband, who understood nothing. She means that there is a boss in the dungeon. Such caves with a boss are very rare, and the dungeon itself is very dangerous. The girl step by step explains to Kitten that the main bosses of dungeons can only be two types, and one of them is a dragon. As at the cave entrance, they were again covered by a strong blizzard of magical energy, so strong that the boy was slightly thrown back. Plotty was confident and did not retreat a step, understanding where the flow of this immense energy came from. For in this dungeon, something sinister approaches them. The young people stand and wait for the appearance of that very boss. Kidding thinks it is a dragon and asks Plotty about it. His wife, becoming wary, says it is much worse than a dragon. This is the boss, the king of the undead, the king without life. The undead loom over them like the moon in the sky. In his eyes, there is no hint that anyone can get out of here unharmed. Cadden, sweating from fear, asks the girl about the creature that appeared before them. The girl, preparing for battle, says that it is a great mage or a high priest. And the immortal king, who rules over the undead summit, has strong magic and high intelligence from birth. Meeting a powerful undead king in a dungeon means only one thing: inevitable, painful death. The young man does not want his life, which has just begun, to end so quickly. Kitten is not going to retreat. The undead king, inhaling and releasing a stream of energy, says he feels a strange flow. He will turn the boy into a living corpse and become his friend. The girl threw her potion vials at the demon, expecting an effect. Hitting the king's skull, the bone first melted, then restored along with the crown, showing that her potion does not affect him. Kitten noticed that the monster was healing. The girl was not surprised because she expected this. The demon was immortal. Facing a dangerous enemy, Pletty shouted that she had many potions in reserve and ordered him to run away quickly from here. At the moment of the spoken words, the young man thought about the chance to survive if he ran away and whether he could live on as he planned. The boy shouts that he cannot do this. He has one thing he picked up on the way to the boss. Realizing that trying to wound him with potions was pointless, he rushed at the undead king with a sword in hand. Kaiden shouted that he is her husband and will save the girl, so he desperately rushed at that magical creature that could instantly turn him into a corpse. The girl was moved by the young man's words. As if he gently touched her proud heart, she lunges at him like a hawk at prey. The boy is ready to deliver the decisive blow, but the king asks him to stop. He lay down on the floor and said that he would no longer fight, while Kitten and Platty stood in complete astonishment. The king does not want to feel pain. He did not expect the young man to reveal the holy sword because it contains immense power. The confused boy drew his holy sword in front of his face. Platty simply remained silent and did not interfere in their conversation. The monster asked the boy where he got the sword from. Then the monster, resembling death, remembered something. It was the holy sword from his dungeon. Kitten apologized and was about to return the sword. The undead king said that the sword now belongs to him. The holy sword has its own will and seeks to choose its master by itself, and now it has chosen the young boy. The undead king lost his treasure. With relief in his soul, he says that his service in this world has finally ended. He asks to be killed with this sword because his body is cursed with immortality. With this sword, the boy can cleanse the king, but the boy does not want this and believes he is not fit to be the sword's master. He said that he came from another world. Then God gave him the power to fully utilize any tools. Perhaps that is why Kitten can wield the holy sword. The monster dropped to its knees and screamed loudly. It said that this is a gift from the gods from legends, and that exceptional ability is not just a skill. It cannot be confined within the limits of skills. Every person who has received a blessing from God deserves the title of hero and is holy. The undead king bowed to the embarrassed Kitten. The king addresses the people who bring blessings from the gods, asking them to give him some of their immunity. The boy is stunned by what is happening and asks not to be promoted in rank. Platin expected her husband to be this calm. The undead king asked in surprise why the young man had come here. Caton replied that he had recently started living nearby. The girl intervened and said that destroying monsters is the main task of the inhabitants. Fur and bones of monsters are embedded in the materials of magical tools. Some of them are even tasty. The girl said this with a blissful smile. The man was tired of her words because they were received hospitably, and she considered it convenient when a dungeon was nearby. In a frenzy, he asks permission to enter this dungeon to unleash his fury. The king agreed. At first, he himself wanted to destroy the monsters in the dungeon, and the young ones helped him a lot with this. Platy is very happy and grateful to the undead king for the permission. He sees nothing wrong with it, and they smile together. Behind them stands a stunned boy. The girl noticed that a friendship had formed between them and the king, introduced herself and Kitten, and said she wanted to meet the evil spirits. The king pondered and realized he had forgotten his name. Floody was surprised because she did not expect the king to forget his name. If he is not mistaken, he was previously an archbishop in the church even before he was born. The mermaid listens very attentively to her new friend. For an unknown reason, he was abandoned, and the people of the church who came here persecuted him. In this dungeon, the entity absorbed the accumulated mana and cast a powerful spell that ultimately killed him. He spent hundreds of years in this place. He is no longer obsessed, but he forgot his name. The king was so saddened by this that he shed a tear. The man and the woman sympathize with the dead king. They deeply regret that such a story happened to him. The creature said that he was just an old man who had lost the simplest desire to live and the meaning of life, and with the arrival of children, his boredom somewhat receded, and the king was undoubtedly glad about this. Kitten began to smile, and Platy noticed it. He turned to his new friend and invited him to visit sometimes. They would be glad to meet him with the vegetables he grew. The boy called the king sensei. She became alert and asked why her husband called him that, since he was an outstanding priest during his lifetime, and the boy decided to call him that. The spoken word touched the dead king, who had spent hundreds of years in the dungeon after dying from a curse. Still on his knees, he thanked them for their kindness, so they had a good neighbor. Walking to the exit, Kitten panicked and shouted to the sensei that the sword would not leave him. The king laughed. The girl was worried because she realized that the sword truly loved him, and so the boy received the holy sword. Kitten happily exclaimed that everything was ready. The young man was incredibly happy with his creation. Platy asked about her husband's new building. He showed the structure and said it was a forge furnace. He pulled out the holy sword and admired its incredible power because the sword cuts a boulder like soft butter, and the girl hinted at its true purpose. In that case, the mermaid became interested in why to make a blacksmith's forge. Then he reminded her that he received a gift from the undead king, sensei. Platy understood that the man was talking about manor metal, which the sensei gave to the boy as a token of gratitude. The girl is so fascinated by him that she calls him the generous sensei, and the magic in the dungeon is so dense that it can transform into mana metal and simply give them this extremely rare resource. Platy is curious about what the boy will do next. Having received this valuable metal, he will be able to make from it what he has long desired. The boy is waiting for this. While Kitten forges, the girl continues to admire, because the metal is made entirely of mana, and maybe a good magical sword will come out. Reliable magical weapons cost at least 10 gold. The boy shows what he created. It is a frying pan and a knife with the sharpest possible blade. Kitten bought kitchenware and is happy about it like a child. The girl is in a stupor because she was thinking about the magic sword and became curious about what it is. Then the boy began to tell. He showed each thing and named it. It is easier to show than to explain, and he began to prepare. Kaidian cuts vegetables with this kitchen knife, then fries them in a freshly forged magical frying pan. Like a true chef from a Michelin restaurant, he demonstratively sprinkles salt and pepper on the finished dish. The girl eagerly waits to taste it. The boy prepared fried vegetables, a new dish on his menu. Everything shone and seemed to rejoice from the sweet taste. During the meal, she noticed that their dishes had changed. Kaiden made not only a frying pan and a knife, but also ordinary dishes. The mermaid came to her senses and doesn't understand why he is now spending the semolina metal, while the guy is fascinated by this strange material because it is light, heats well, does not burn, and is easy to clean, not a dream, but a real fairy tale. Thanks to this, the boy's culinary skills will improve a little. He looks happier than ever before moving to another world. Platy, who felt as if struck by an electric shock, asked about the recipes he wanted to add. The boy, enjoying the new kitchen appliance, said that there are recipes, but a few more ingredients are needed. The girl angrily demands an answer about what else he needs for this. After these words, the young man thought that he really wants meat. He imagines the taste of the dish and says that with meat it will taste completely different. The girl can't wait to try it and invited him somewhere. They wander through the forest. Because Platy is a mermaid, she has never seen mountain monsters, which she always wanted to eat. Twisting the sword in his hands, the young man thought they would hunt like humans. Traditionally, the girl agrees that there are also bird monsters, boar or deer, but she is not interested in that. Mountain monsters are better suited for cooking. Platy cheerfully says that others consider mountain monsters very tasty. Kedon concluded that such creatures in this world are used as trade items. Then she asks her husband about caves, specifically how he thinks monsters are born in caves. This is a cave dungeon, but the undead King Sensei controls the monsters with his power and does not let them out. If there were any mountain monsters here, the whole mountain would be a dungeon. The girl wants to make a logical conclusion so that the young man understands everything and does not ask. They stopped. The boy does not believe that such a dungeon is nearby. He is upset that there are no normal animals here that could be eaten. When they were walking through the forest thickets, there was darkness ahead, in which a pile of eyes reflected light. Probably these were animals, and in front of them stood a whole pack of boars, monsters clearly not inclined to peace and friendship. Platy rejoiced at this find when Kedon began to sweat from fear. It seemed that the young man would never get used to the new world. He is scared because the boars clearly look like they are ready to fight them. The girl even knows what kind of creatures these are, square boars. Blatty jumps for joy, calling this place incredible. Nearby are 2 dungeons. Kitten is stunned and scared, not understanding why they should really be happy about this. The girl starts fighting, takes out her potions, and asks the frightened man to hold them off as long as possible, promising to quickly finish them off. One by one, the boars began attacking the young man with the holy sword in his hands. The boy was not ready for battle and had no choice, so he had to accept it and do what was necessary. Holding such a powerful sword in his hands, he knocked down the boars one by one, not even letting them touch him. Behind him lies a whole pile of corpses. Kitten, holding the weapon in front of himself, breathes heavily from fatigue. Platy jumps with joy and says that he did everything perfectly. She didn't even use any potion. The boy didn't want to fight and explained the victory by the fact that they attacked one after another and he unexpectedly won. At least they will be able to eat not only vegetables. The mermaid impatiently wants to start cooking. Since there was a lot of meat, she suggested cutting it into pieces for cooking and freezing them with a potion, and Kedon thought of making a cart and a refrigerator for storing food. After spending some time on this, the boy built what he planned, a refrigerator and a cart filled with provisions. The young man asked his wife about freezing potions. She proudly crossed her arms on her chest and doubted that he trusted her. The girl had a whole stock. Sincerely and with tears in his eyes, Kitten thinks that their everyday life is getting better and better, and for the girl, this is the most important thing. She listens and says that this will help the boy improve his dishes. She asks him to cook faster. The boy just laughs at his wife's reaction. The wild boar is also pork, and if the young man wants to make the tastiest dish from such meat, it will be tonkatsu. Wiping the drool from his imagination, he thinks only about the crispy crust of tonkatsu, and the girl is outraged that the man imagines this and gets pleasure from it. But his dreams were replaced by thoughts because they will again have few ingredients. The problem will arise during bread baking. The obstacle is in the eggs. Plenty is angry because of this. He asked the girl if there are eggs in this world similar to those from another world, and she sadly replied that she heard that land people in this country make something similar, but in the mermaid country, you won't see such. Pletty points to a crow that sat in their field. Kitten says that it is not suitable for cooking. The girl proposes a radical plan, to go back to the mountains to look for the monster bird, but the young man does not want to. He thinks he will have to kill the monsters he met, and behind his back in the sky flies a huge creature that gets closer every second. The boy felt pressure from behind. It confused him. He turned around to understand the reason. The girl, looking at the creature, gaped in surprise. Plotty thought it was a bird or a plane, and Kidum thought it was a meteor flying straight at them at a crazy speed. As soon as the creature flew very close, swirling a vortex of air around itself, they realized who it was. The girl was less scared than Kid, and this winged creature turned out to be a real dragon. For their souls, because they invaded the dungeon he rules. She points to the mountain where they were. Plotty recognizes it as the dragon's dungeon. Cadence says nothing, just stands scared with his mouth open. In the vortex raised by the powerful wings of the dragon, the girl correctly understood that he is the ruler of that dungeon. Almost in tears from fear, the boy shouts to the mermaid, recalling her words that there is no ruler in the dungeon. She realized that the power of the young man attracted him. The dragoness is named Grinsel Dragon Shroud. She asks again who invaded her dungeon on Royal Mountain without permission and killed her servants, and she knows it was done by the young man. He, covering himself with his hands, tries to get out, justifying that they did not know about the existence of the owner of that mountain. The winged mighty creature still hovers over them. Caton apologizes and promises not to return there anymore, but the dragon does not even listen. Grinsel Dragon Trout considers such an act unforgivable. These lower creatures violated the boundaries of her home and did as they pleased. People stained her honor. That is why she will destroy their existence. Grinsel decides to cleanse the consequences of their sins and, overwhelmed by true anger, releases fiery breath to turn them to ash. Her fire, like a shockwave, spreads across the entire land. Platyfish and Kaiden do not know what to do. The girl panics and thinks their death is inevitable, but the boy regains consciousness and remembers his holy sword. Like a true hero, he swung the weapon, shielding Platyfish's body from the fire and trying to fend off the dragon's strike himself. He broke through the flames chasing them. If he had slowed down even for a second, it would have been over. Grinsel Dragon, Shroud, stunned by this turn of events. For her, humans are lower life forms, but they managed to defend themselves. Gasping from exhaustion, the boy did it. He saved them both from inevitable death. The girl was able to accept this and began to panic about what was happening. When she was in the air, Dragon Shroud considered it impossible that an ordinary person could fend off her deadly breath. Kaiden worried not about himself, but about his wife, who, as expected, was glad that her beloved succeeded. No, he not only deflected the breath of death, nothing remained of the fire, and at that moment the boy thanks the gods that all the seedlings survived, turns to the dragon with a serious look, and makes the cloak of the dragon Grinsel shudder. Like a true polite inhabitant of another world, he bowed and apologized for entering the dungeon without permission, but there was one small condition. Holding the sword before him, the tip of the blade aimed at the dragon, he says that if he truly has the right, he is ready to fight the ruler to protect what is dear to him. He stands with the holy sword extended toward the dragon, offers the monster from the dungeon to fight the boy in a deadly duel, and himself hopes the creature will just leave. Grinsel Dragon Shroud noticed the sword in the devoted youth's hand. She turned to him. The dragon wanted to say something about the sword he was holding in his hand. The boy found nothing better than to say it out loud. Kidan raised the sword in front of him and said that this was the very holy sword that Grinsel Dragon Cloak was thinking about. It was the sword of the immortal king, which he had given him as a gift. He hinted that it was very powerful. The dragon landed and said that this was the wrong answer. This greatly stressed the young man and plunged him into stupor. This holy sword actually belongs to the dragon Grinsel Vale. The monster reached out to his prey. The young man was very frightened. Then the undead king spoke, addressing the dragon Grinsel Vale. He was telling the truth. The young man, like the dragon Grinsel himself, did not expect the sudden appearance of the master, who stood behind Kidan, covering his back. He delivered a powerful attack that pushed everyone back like the wind. The sensei pushed another lord aside. While the winged creature lay breathless on the ground, the master turned around and said that everything happened because of him and sincerely apologized. The young man did not quite understand what it was about, and then Play T intervened in the conversation to clarify the situation. The immortal king said that, searching for those who penetrated his mountain, he came to him first. The dragon called him a worthless corpse who dared to invade his territory. Then the sensei remembered Kidan's new neighbor. Saying, "Damned neighbor," the dragon flew off to look for the audacious creature that violated his territory. The exhausted king realized his mistake, awkwardly laughed, finished the story about the misunderstanding, and after that the young man did not feel any better. He hinted that he felt guilty because they really sneaked into Dragon's Mountain without permission. The young man believes that if anyone is guilty, it is them, and the sensei says nothing against this, because he is also human and understands a friend. For people, the dungeon is not a good source of raw materials, ingredients, or building materials, and it is not an important place for constant earnings and obtaining necessary things. The undead king says that this is actually why people gather in groups to conquer dungeons. The immortal king addressed Grinsel Vale and said that invaders are a common thing for the dungeon master. The dragon just swallowed. Pointing a finger at his powerful winged neighbor, he says that getting angry just because a small part of the dungeon was captured and leaving his territory to punish the invaders is complete shamelessness. Grinsel Vale was scolded, so he broke out in drops of sweat. As a mighty creature, he behaves very limitedly and childishly. After that, he still considers himself worthy to be called the heir of the geyser dragon. Looking into the dragon's eyes, the sensei says that Kitten is not his level and orders him to immediately return to the mountain, and the boy, peeking from behind the teacher's back, wants to stop upon hearing these words. Grinsel Vale refuses to comply with the immortal king's demands. He does not understand why a worthless human can possess a sword. His father asked him to take the sword from the dead man. The creature does not understand why a corpse would give the sword to another mortal. The undead king reminds that the sword has its own will and chose this man himself. Kitten feels flattered by the sensei's words. When the dragon's father was still alive, he began to understand the power of the immortal. The father feared her, and Grinsel Vale only mindlessly burns everything, so it was natural to pay with this sword. The dragon is furious. He will not accept such an explanation and is ready to fight this mortal to the death to take the treasure of the geyser dragon. Then the undead king of evil spirits challenged the creature to a fight, and the mighty beast hissed in response. Turning around, he was already about to take off and refused to participate in the fight this time. He called the young man to remember this day, and Kitten, having thought of nothing better, asked the surprised Grinsel Vale to wait a second. The desperate boy grabbed the strong creature by the tail. It fell to the ground, and he definitely did not expect that. Grinsel got angry and shouted at the boy, calling him worthless for daring to touch his body. The frightened boy stepped aside and apologized, and the sensei reminded that the dragon will not be able to defeat them. Kitten addressed the dragon. If he was not in a hurry, the boy invited him to join them for dinner. Greensel Dragon Shroud did not quite understand the boy. The boys show the finished dish made from the underground dragon boar. Kitten is not sure that the powerful creature will like the steak, but still offers him to try it. After thinking a little and looking at the small piece of meat, Grinsel threw it into her big mouth. Awakening all her taste sensations, the dragon straightened up to full height and said it was very tasty. Then the mighty creature released an explosion into the sky, which spread as a shock wave across the entire area. Releasing a powerful stream of air that knocked the young man back, the dragon bent down and said that the steak was really delicious. Kitten was undoubtedly glad that the dungeon lord was so delighted with the steak. Grinsel asks for more meat. Platyfish, out of jealousy, also asks for a piece of steak. The boy is worried because he does not know how much more he needs to prepare for everyone. A dazzling light flared up behind the children. Turning around, they saw that Grinsel was glowing like a light bulb, and Kedon and Platyfish froze in amazement. They see the dragon glowing and slowly shrinking. The young people freeze watching this. The silhouette of the huge mighty creature becomes smaller every second. This is Grinsel Dragon Shroud, a short-statured girl in a dress with a lush skirt. She has 2 ponytails tied with bows on her head. She appeared in all her beauty. Still stunned, the newlyweds realized that the dragon had become a little girl. Kitten did not think the creature could be female, and the sensei explained to them that dragons have the unique ability to take human form. Grinsel, drooling in anticipation of tasty food, shouted to the boy that she liked his steak and that she would always love him. The girl stood by the table and demanded that meat be brought to her quickly. Plotty was outraged by the dragon's behavior because she was next in line and should just stand and wait. Kitten decided to fry more meat so that there would be enough. The undead king decided to try the prepared treats, and not in vain. He really liked the steak. The boy is happy, as the sensei says. The meat was perfectly grilled, and the most interesting thing for him was the seasoning. Ketten said he used garlic for flavor and added salt and pepper. For him, this is the simplest dish. But the immortal king does not believe these words and says that even in the royal palace, they do not know how to cook such a delicious dish. The dragoness Grynisel Shroud lies helplessly on the ground because she ate too many steaks. She tells Ketten not to get cocky. Nearby, a mermaid with an equally large belly is resting. The girl sternly tells him not to get carried away. She still has not given up the sacred sword, but he reminds her that she is still inexperienced, and now it is impossible, so the boy apologizes and says that the weapon itself does not let him go. She resigned herself and promised to quietly burn this man to ashes with her deadly breath, after which she will easily take the sword for herself. Plotty, sitting nearby, reminded her that if she does that, she will no longer be able to eat the best steaks in her life. Grinsel realized the obstacle to the realization of her plan. Her body was enveloped by a powerful whirlwind. Transforming into a dragon, she tells Kitten to remember that she will one day take this sword from his hands. Until that day comes, she will come to try his food. The boy agreed and said goodbye, saying he would always be glad. Grinsel Dragon Shroud began to fly away. Plotty asked her to wait a few seconds. She wanted to ask something. She wonders if there are any bird monsters in her dungeon, probably out of concern for the man, and after a short reflection, Grinsel says she does not know how many there are, but these birds are bony and not suitable for food. But the mermaid does not need their meat, she only wants their eggs. The dragon Shroud does not quite understand why they need bird eggs. Then Plutty says excitedly that if they have eggs, Ketten will be able to make the meat even tastier than today. Lightning strikes Grinsel. She instantly turned around and flew home. The mermaid again asks the mighty beast, who raises the wind with his wings, to stop. Plutty, raising her ears, proudly says she knows about monster ecology and asks to be taken with him. Kitten did not expect his wife to want to fly with the ruler. Dragon Grinsel Shroud agreed without hesitation. In a moment she took off. Plutty sat on her back, and they slowly moved away from the land where the boy and the dead king remained. Kid Ann was stunned. He just silently watched as the girls flew away. Plutty shouted that she was not going to return home empty-handed. The undead king says that what happened is quite a good picture. The boy agreed without hesitation. Looking at the endless sky, he smiles and says that this is much better than just sitting and being bored. Kedon shows his work to his wife. She hesitates and does not believe what he has done, and he confirms her thought by saying that he made a sword, turning a person into metal. Plotty with shining eyes looks at the weapon and says that this sword made of mana metal will be the strongest in the world, if not counting the sacred sword. She hopes for wealth and thinks that the boy will sell it. It will cost a lot. Her dream of wealth has been shattered. Gideon did not intend to sell it. The boy improved Kakashi, the scarecrow in their field that can move, and he is very happy with what he made. The girl did not quite understand why it was specifically for Kakashi. The mermaid frowned. A cloud of confusion appeared on her face. Kitten comforted her, saying that they still had some mana metal left. Her sullen expression changed to joy at the thought that the scarecrow with these swords would destroy the pesky birds that were ruining their fields. The boy did not understand what she meant. The boy looked at what their living mannequin had done. Kakashi made a mana sword strike and easily cut the bird into pieces. Keaton shouts at the scarecrow that killing is forbidden on his territory. The mermaid, realizing this is impossible, is a little upset. Kakashi, Kun can't even catch the birds flying and crying above him as if teasing. The boy looked relieved and happy. Platy did not quite understand why her husband gave the scarecrow swords. Suddenly darkened and full of joy, the boy shouts that it is cool, and his eyes shine with happiness. While Kitten thinks about what equipment to give Kakashi-kun, the girl says that she really does not understand male romance. Sitting before the endless sea with a fishing rod in his hands and a sword on his back, Kitten enjoys this, for it has been a long time since he last fished. The boy realized that last time fishing he thought he caught something big, but in fact he caught a mermaid, unexpectedly got married, and immediately decided to live with platyfish. Such a mercenary as he was summoned to another world, he hoped for a peaceful life, but it did not work out. Life became bright thanks to the mermaid who became his wife. Here there is also an immortal king and a dragon, so he is always busy. To get away a little from all this noise and fuss, the boy went fishing, and this moment really benefited him. Suddenly the boy heard a splash. From beyond the sea horizon appeared a boy with fish fins on his head. Kitten was frightened by the sudden appearance of the silhouette. He looked at the boy and asked if he might be a friend of Platy. The boy was very close with the merman. But the creature was not entirely satisfied with the stranger. He emerged from the water up to his waist with the only threat that he must be killed. Kitten, hearing this, fell silent. He tensed. Raising his hand, Platy's probable friend shouted for everyone to get ready. Warriors and mermaids in uniforms began to emerge from the water, and he, as the commander, ordered everyone to immediately kill the man on the shore and anyone who resisted. Mermaid warriors, hearing the commander's order, formed a wave and rushed at stunned Kidon. Gradually approaching, they aimed their tritons at the boy who stood in shock with his mouth open. Returning to reality, Kedon grabbed his sacred sword by the hilt and swung it. With one hand movement, the boy created a whole tornado in which the warriors spun and tried to attack him. Realizing what he had done, Caton froze, not knowing what to do next. The exhausted bodies of the warriors bubbled in the sea. The worried Platy ran toward the noise. She was concerned about the commotion because she was far from her husband. The boy wanted to explain what was happening, but he was interrupted. A possible friend of Platy's appeared from the water and called her by name. He was also caught by the tornado from the sacred sword. The girl was surprised by the appearance of a familiar person. The young mermaid turned out not to be a friend, but the brother of the mermaid's wife. They were separated by only a few meters. Deadly silence reigned around. Only Kitten did not understand what was happening because Platy had not said that she had a brother. All the mermaid warriors suddenly rushed to the girl and called her princess. Cadden was even more stunned by the situation he found himself in. The upset girl silently looked at the sea where the mermaids splashed and called Princess Ginnis, asking if she was safe. Platy decided to introduce herself properly. The one who tried to kill her husband is the girl's older brother, Prince Aravana, the next heir to the throne. The boy was surprised because before him was not only a princess, but also the prince himself, and he opened his mouth wide. Platy proudly crosses her arms on her chest and reminds the prince that she said she is a princess. Turning to her older brother, the girl decides to introduce him to the boy. The prince does not quite understand what is happening. Then the princess shouted that this boy was her husband, and his name was Kitten. The girl is not afraid of the consequences, and the boy is very scared and even wanted to stop his wife, the princess, from speaking. The entire army of mermaids, including the prince, heard the words and froze, all of them opening their mouths in surprise. Standing her ground, Platy says she understands that her older brother came to take her, but she refuses to return to the mermaid kingdom and asks that these words be passed on to her mom and dad. The prince considers it unforgivable because the landman defiled his sister by abducting her. Elder brother Platy calls her husband a scoundrel and intends to wipe him off the face of the earth and take back his younger sister. The princess tells her beloved not to worry and not to be shy about striking back, but the boy with the holy sword is afraid to do it because they are not foreign to her. A strong gust of wind from behind blows the fish of Platy and Kedon into the sea. Their second attempt fails. The strongest wind blew from the dragon Vale, who flew into the noise coming from the sea, and the prince was shocked that the dungeon master himself had arrived. The entire army of battle mermaids fears this mighty creature. They are convinced that the dragon will devour them and destroy them with a single breath. Grinsel Dragon in a cloak landed next to the people and asked if they were all right. Kidden thanked him for the help. The prince was stunned that earthly beings had befriended the dragon. The beast laughed and said it could not eat the tasty meat if the boy disappeared. Plenty said not to boast about it just because he was thanked. The girl's older brother wanted to say something to the three creatures, but the dragon noticed that he was completely alone. The prince looked back and noticed that behind him the sea was empty. The daughter of the geyser dragon promises to instantly turn him into coal as a reward for not fleeing from the dragon Grinsel. Kaiden struck the mighty beast in the knee so that it would not dare to do so, and it howled from the blow. The boy says that the man in the sea is Pletty's brother. Fail is surprised. Kitten invites the prince to have dinner with him. The girl's older brother does not understand the boy's behavior. The boy extends his hand and offers to talk calmly, explain the situation, and just get acquainted. The prince did not appreciate his generosity, decided that he was up to something, did not want to listen to a single word, and Platy, interrupting the conversation, told her brother to hurry and return to his kingdom as soon as possible. The man shouts at his wife and says that it is wrong. Her brother came here because he is worried about his sister. He believes that he should listen to everything the prince wants to say. The girl did not expect such a reaction from the young man. The older brother heard this and said that he changed his mind. Kedon was blinded by the bright light of the prince. As a prince, he could not escape from the fight. His honor was at stake, so he accepted the challenge. The boy was impressed that his brother came out of the sea without clothes and was not ashamed at all. Kidden shouts for him to cover himself with something. The brother thinks that this is rude on Kidden's part, but the girl anticipated everything and prepared clothes for him and gives him underwear. The boy realized that a similar situation had already happened to his wife. He invited his brother to come to them. Vale anxiously tells Platyfish that Kidden has to feed him. This is a chance to try a new dish. The girl is silent and doubts what is happening. The older brother saw the house where the newlyweds live and called it miserable. His sister is a member of the ruling mermaid family, and Kidden allows her to live in a semi-ruined dwelling. Platyfish is angry, and the boy is ashamed. Standing in his underwear, the prince yells at the boy, accusing him of slavery and of using the boy's sister. Then Platyfish showed him another building. It is a barn where meat from the mountains and vegetables from the fields are stored. The older brother froze in amazement, not only because of the shape and size, but also because of the mysterious walls of the building. Kidnon explained that it is plaster he found in the mountains. The sister called her brother. She points to another building. It is a brewery where fermentation takes place. Kidden dreamily says they are waiting for miso and soy sauce when everything is ready. The older brother does not understand the foreign words the boy says. Platyfish notices that her husband knows what they do not know. He cooks well and is strong in battle. Kidden can do everything. The warehouse the girl showed earlier is her magic room. Kedon, as a husband, always takes care of her. While Platy boasts about her husband, the boy invites the prince to sit on a chair. The young man prepared a new dish and recently made a garden table. He invites people to the table to drink tea and talk, but the girl was already sitting at the table. The older brother did not understand where this child came from, but Kitten explained that this is Grinsel Vale, her human form. The girl urges him to bring the new dish. The prince is stunned to see a dragon in front of him. Platyfish is offended and says she is always like this when she asks for food. Kitten introduced the new dish Zenzai. When he grew soybeans for it, adzuki beans also grew. They all took utensils in their hands and began to try this dish. The brother was very cautious because this food was unfamiliar to him. Everyone simultaneously tried the traditional dessert soup and said it was very tasty. The brother and sister enjoyed the flavor, and Vale asked for more, but there was no soup left. The beans grew by accident. There were not many of them. Everyone was angry that there were no more tasty beans left. The girls turned to the prince and accused him of coming late, and because of him, there was no soup left. The elder brother fell to his knees and apologized to the young man. His skill was incomparable, as if Kitten were a saint or a sage. The young man asked him to stop, but the prince was sincerely convinced that his sister was in love with him. Then he said that he trusted her with his sister. Platy liked this, but Kitten was not sure if it was good. He does not understand why he is against this. When the young man first heard that the mermaid was a princess of the mermaid kingdom, he decided that if she had such a high status, it would not be so easy for him to choose a husband. He thought that many foreign expectations were placed on her. She began to shout that this was not true. She was married only to him and did not pay attention to anyone's expectations. She decided for herself how to live and called him a fool. The brother tries to calm his sister, saying that Mr. Sant does not know the circumstances of his wife. The prince wanted to tell the truth, but Vale explained that there is an ongoing conflict between humans and demons for control over the surface. It has reached the neutral mermaids, and they were forced into a political marriage. The brother is shocked that the girl knew that for several hundred years she reminded him who she was, and the girl hears this, whether she wants to or not. In this world, there is a war between humans and magical creatures. Kitten was summoned here as a hero to fight them. The brother says that now interference will increase on both sides, and the rulers will be forced to choose. If the mermaids do not choose a side, they will become enemies of both sides and targets for their attacks. It is said that the higher circles of the kingdom are discussing which race Platy should marry. For Kedon, this is something. The brother believes that Platy can save the kingdom only by fleeing. Seeing her here safe, he, as the older brother, wants to fulfill her wish. The prince turns to the girl and says that he is glad she met a good person. The girl is undoubtedly happy from these words. Kneeling down, the brother asks to protect his sister and officially marry her. Kitten asks him to stop, but willingly agrees to officially formalize the marriage himself. Then Vale interrupted the conversation of the young people and asked about marriage. The embarrassed boy agreed. Grinsel Dragon, Shroud is also getting married. Kedon is stunned by this, and Platy looks jealously at her rival. Vale thought about how to get the holy sword, and it turned out that if they got married, the property would be divided. For dragons, human life lasts only a moment, and if she becomes his wife, she will be able to eat exquisite dishes every day. She asked if he would marry her. Kedian refused. The girl was shocked, although the boy already had quite a few. Regarding the veil, she knows nothing. If the male is strong, it's normal for him to have several females. She called the boy the master. Kitten replied that he was not her master, and even if he were strong, he would be against polygamy. Dragon Shroud cried at this answer. She does not understand why it is so. She thinks it is because she is not as strong as the immortal king, or that the guy hates her. She, crying, demanded that the boy marry her. Kitten agreed, only if she stopped crying. Valet shouted happily. Platy was shocked, and the young man apologized to his brother. The prince said that all parents of daughters in the world have something in common. And yet, women are very annoying on the outside. Platy is upset and irritated by the behavior of her brother and the newcomer. The newlyweds walk along the shore. The brother has already gone home to inform the parents, and they are waiting for their consent to officially marry. The girl worries about Kitten because she thinks something is wrong. She ran away from home when royal life became unbearable and met him. She was caught and forced to marry him. She is having fun here. Her beloved cooks deliciously. She wants to be with him forever, but only hinders him, although the girl cannot return to the mermaid kingdom. Kidhen just smiled. Knowing her situation, he is not going to change their way of life now. The boy received power from God. People noticed that he was not useful in battle, so he came here. The boy does not consider himself strong. He believes they can strive for a happy life. Since then, embarrassed, he asks the girl to stay with him. Platy looks at him with burning eyes. Out of happiness, she threw herself into the arms of her future official husband. They are happy together. Vale called the boys who were hugging and said that he makes her wait. The girl continued to call him master. Standing at their feet, she whines on the ground and says she is hungry. Kitten and Platy looked at each other. The boy decided to do something. He will give her sweets as a wedding gift, and the mermaid is also happy about it, and the girl says that anything will do if the boy does it quickly. Katin decided to build a house and thought they needed more help. Platy handed over a starfish, thinking that was exactly what he asked for. The boy said that was not it, explained that he meant workers, and Platy asked again. Kitten replied that something needs to be done with the field now, because he wants to deal with the harvest and gather what is already ready, and added that he is already busy because he started making miso and soy sauce and has a wife. Kitten said he wants to build a house. Platin was very happy, and the undead king said that it was very exciting. With these words, he scared the heroes. They did not expect his appearance. They said he appeared unexpectedly. The boy then asked if something bad had happened, but the king reassured him, saying that he was just free, so he came to visit them and that he was fine. Kitten felt relieved, and the guest said he had another gift made of mana metal and gave him a piece. The boy was surprised by its size and said that it was a great help. The undead asked if he really needed the stone. The boy nodded and said that many household items could be made from it. After that, he added that it was just in time because he lacked workers, and the king asked what he meant by hands. Kitten explained that Plotty's brother noticed that they lived in a terrible house, so the young man said that now he would build a completely different one and do it with all his strength. Plenty was very surprised and suggested in that case to ask the undead king for help, and Kidda thought that if he prepared miso, everything would go much faster, but he rejected this idea as foolish. However, the undead king asked how many workers he needed and if he could bring them here. Kedem was very surprised, thought he misheard, asked again, but the undead king replied by asking if 10 would be enough. A young man said embarrassedly that he would be grateful, but did not understand where he would get so much. The undead king disappeared, asking him to wait a little. After some time, Kedun and Platy could not believe their eyes. Before them stood the undead king and introduced from his dungeon humanoid monsters, 5 orcs and 5 goblins. He explained that these monsters appeared in his dungeon and obey his orders, so he commanded them to obey the saint so that the young man could use them as needed. Kitten was very surprised. Then he greeted the monsters and introduced himself as Shaylee, but they stood silently and motionless. Kaiten did not understand why they did not react, and the undead king explained that they could not speak. He said that they had enough intelligence only to follow orders, but they lacked self-awareness and self-preservation instinct. Kitten understood. The king added that he should not give them a reward and that they feed on mana from the air, so he did not need to feed them. Platy was very glad of this news. She enthusiastically said that Kitten would solve all his problems with them. The man was silent, so Platy asked if it was true. The young man agreed, said she was right, then gratefully bowed to the king and sincerely thanked him. The undead replied that there was nothing wrong with that, wished him luck in building the house, and disappeared. The boy clenched his fist. He gladly responded to the proposal to unite and build a wonderful house, but the monsters still stood without reaction, so the boy felt as if he was speaking into the void. Then Kitten began giving orders. The orcs carried logs, the goblins sawed boards, he taught them to use machines. After some time, they built the foundation. Plutty said that the monsters were impressive, and Kedon admitted that at first he doubted, but the house was coming out much bigger. He added that the physical strength of orcs is indeed suitable for hard labor, while goblins have nimble hands. The young man said that goblins make mistakes when doing hard work, but if they are persistently trained, they gradually learn and become better. They even learn to mow grass and weave from it. The man smiled and said that although they are monsters watching their work, he wanted to be kinder to them, and Plenty smiled at these words of her beloved husband. She explained that there is no need to pity them too much, because they were created from mana and cannot be called living beings. Kitten put his hand behind his head and said that this is true, but everyone should be given the opportunity to live well. Platy further explained that magical creatures often use them in battles with humans. They send large armies because they believe that monsters will die anyway, so they can always be replaced by the dungeon. Kennen was surprised, but still thought that from cooking to waste processing, all this is done by monsters. He sighed and resigned himself, realizing that this is the world and nothing more. Then he heard a goblin stumble and fall along with what he was carrying, and Kitten turned around. He ran up to him and asked if everything was all right. The boy helped the goblin to get up and kept asking if he was injured. However, the goblin was silent. Ketten remembered that they do not react, but doubted whether it was worth talking to them. At that moment the goblin answered, and the boy came out of his thoughts. He said that everything was fine, then addressed Cadden and repeated it. The boy and Platy were completely shocked by his words. After that, the boy knelt on one knee and asked again if everything was all right. The goblin answered yes. He, addressing Kitten as his master, added that he wants to work more. The goblin nearby added that he wants to as well. Kitten was shocked to see that the other also started speaking, and then goblins and orcs began to approach from everywhere and say that they wanted to work for them Allard. Plotty did not believe it, but said that it seemed the monsters had become self-aware. The boy shouted that self-awareness could not just appear like that. Then he looked at his hands and realized that maybe it was because of the power he possessed, because of his skills and sense of superiority, and decided that it was too incredible, so this skill must be handled carefully. The young man clenched his fist and decided that if he put all his strength into it, he could talk to them, so he ran up to the goblins, hugged them, and sincerely thanked them. Plenty thought that now they would not be able to use them and would eventually abandon them. The goblins rejoiced and tossed the hero into the air. After some time, the large house was completely ready. Everyone was happy, but Grinsel was surprised. She asked everyone what had happened there while she was gone. Platy, calling her a stupid dragoness, ordered them to listen and laugh, then with a triumphant smile said that this was their love nest with her husband. Rinzel ran inside and said that she needed to look around. Platy tried to stop her, but the dragon in human form was impressed and delighted and said she had never seen such a building. Kitten peeked in and addressed her, asking her to take off her shoes and leave them in the designated place. Wild did not understand, so the young man explained that this way she would not damage the tatami. The girl took off her shoes, started spinning on the tatami, and asked what kind of bed it was and why it was so comfortable. Platy asked if the girl intended to stay. The young man replied that there was nothing wrong with that, because that was exactly why he had built such a big house. Platy became wary and asked if humanoid monsters would also live there. Kedun replied that that was exactly the plan. When he told them this, they replied that he was talking nonsense because they could not have anything so incredible. Then they said that their home was originally in a dungeon. Kitten thought that this would create problems for the undead king. Then he said that they needed to build a house with many rooms for them, which would be called an apartment building. The goblins wanted to object, but he added that he wanted to make even more, like a bathroom or kitchen, and help would not hurt. He looked at the monsters and asked if they could help him with this. The goblins were very flattered and unanimously answered yes. Platyfish did not understand what this invasion was, because she thought that only she and Keaton would live in their love nest. Then one of the goblins ran up, whom Keaton called Gabukichi. Platyfish asked what kind of name that was, and the boy explained that Gabukichi was the best shoemaker among the goblins. Gabukichi reported that the boy's order was ready. Keaton was delighted, went out into one of the rooms, and joyfully said that it was really a futon. Platyfish asked what a futon was, and Keaton explained that it was his gift to his wife. And then he added that he grew cotton next to the grass to make tatami, and wanted to have a futon in their new home, then suggested that Platyfish lie there. She did not understand, but decided to try and lay on it, asking if it was right. After lying down a bit, she said that she was very comfortable and could not even find words, and the boy was glad that she liked it. Keaton sat next to her and apologized that she still had to sleep on the bare floor. Platyfish sincerely thanked him for that. Then she turned to Gabukichi and also thanked him, and the goblin did not expect this and became embarrassed. After that, the heroes promised that from now on they would try even harder to make their life on the farm wonderful. At that time, a large sailing ship was approaching the shore, and the wind was loudly whistling, cutting through the waves. One of the goblins on the shore was struggling to fill a bucket with water. Then he saw a sailboat on the horizon, looked closely, and did not understand what it was, because he had never seen anything like it before. Later in the house, Cadden gave his brother Platy a glass of water and asked if something had happened. The man looked around in surprise and said that the house was simply amazing, then added that God had probably blessed the young man with special powers. Kidner agreed and shyly laughed. They sat opposite each other, and Caton explained what today's day meant. Aravana agreed and explained that it was about the wedding of the young man and Platy. He added that the news would soon spread and that he had already talked about it with his father. The boy asked what he was told. Aravana replied that at first the father was embarrassed. The man told him about the boy and his power, after which the father agreed. Aravana explained that he did not belong to any race. Kidan understood and replied that he was glad, but added that Platy was tense because of the political marriage. Then he asked about the people and magical creatures, and Aravana replied that they were angry, and Kidan assumed that it would be so. Platy's brother said that their father declared that his daughter would marry a great saint. He was not surprised by these words, and asked if they had come to terms. He replied that they were outraged when they lost the chance to marry Platy, but since the enemies also targeted her, it was better to leave everything as it was. Kidan said that he understood, and was glad that things had been settled for now, but at that moment, Aravana lowered his forehead to the floor and fell to his knees. Caden was surprised and asked what had happened. Aravana replied that they would do everything possible so that the boy would have no problems, in return asking them to take care of Platy. Kaiden calmly asked Aravana to stop and stand up, adding that he was glad to be with Platy and grateful for it. He said that he came here alone, and if it were not for Platy, he would probably still be living alone, and just like the king of the undead, without noticing it, he could forget his name. Ravana was surprised by the mention of the undead king, and Kaiden explained that he meant the neighbor, the immortal king, who is also called the undead king. The man was completely shocked. At that moment, a goblin ran up to them, agitated and frightened. He said there was bad news and reported that the enemy was attacking from the coast. Many monsters had landed. They were magical creatures. The goblin said that orcs and other goblins were now fighting them. Kidane and Arowana were shocked by the news. Keaton asked if magical creatures had come here. Irvana replied that it was impossible because this place is a top-level secret. Keaton was also shocked by this information. Then they noticed a ship in the distance. Brother Plotty said it was definitely a ship of magical creatures. Kidding asked the orc in front of him if Orcubo, who was on site, was okay. The orc stepped aside, and Kenan saw a demonic woman on her knees. Orcabo explained that this person was Asterisk the Milky, although he himself was not sure about it. Kidden looked at the girl and she indignantly told him to stop staring and mind his own business. Then she introduced herself as Astras Bezzerdechna. She is a demonic ruler, one of the 4 heavenly kings. The orcs told the boy that she came to kill their master, so they captured her. Kidden was surprised, looked at the pile of bones nearby and asked what it was, and the goblin explained that they were skeleton warriors led by magical creatures. He also said that there were about 100 of them, but they destroyed them all. Kidkin was shocked that 100 lost to 10. Then the young man approached the monsters and said he knew how strong they were, but asked them not to take any more risks because if they died, he would be sad. The monsters replied they were ready to die for him, and Kidden was outraged because he had just said it was impossible. Asteris was outraged that she was being ignored. Arowana approached her and asked where she had learned about this place. The demon lord was shocked to see the prince of the mermaid kingdom. She told him that because of an easy life they had become stupid, and one should not underestimate the intelligence of demons. She cut the rope with her nails and said that even if eternity passed, they still would not understand, so she could free herself. Astri straightened up, drew her sword, and said she intended to capture Princess Platy and kill her thief, the great saint. Then she aimed the sword at Kedon and said she meant him, and everyone around tensed. Aravana said that this is the demon lord who rules the top demons and thirsts for blood, and on the battlefield, this monster makes even his allies tremble. So the man rushed forward and said he would try to figure it out, but Keaton asked him to stop. The undead king also asked the same. Keaton turned and smiled, and Aravana tensed up. The undead asked why it was so noisy here. Then the man returned and, seeing the king, exclaimed. Keaton smiled and introduced them to each other. Astras and Aravana screamed in fear, saying he was called the Scourge of the World, and were surprised that the boy knew him. The motionless king said he heard that a demon was going to kill Kedon. The boy confirmed this. Astras was very tense and did not understand what was happening. Then she heard a noise in the air and looked up. She saw a huge dragon in the sky, who asked them what was going on. Kedon approached Grizzle and greeted her, and Astras was shocked by his appearance. Platy got off the dragon and ran to the hero. She asked him if he was okay, and the boy replied yes. Aravana asked where she had been, and Grizzle explained that they were looking for tonkatsu eggs in the mountains. The stray fell to the ground, and the dragon explained that later they accidentally saw a demon ship in the ocean. They became curious, so they returned, and the dragon asked if this lower demon was going to kill Kadhin. She explained that if anyone harmed her master, she would become an enemy. She also said she considered demons worms, so their kind would be destroyed. Keaton, surprised, stopped Vale and the dragon and apologized. Then the boy approached the demon on the ground. He made a proposal. If she promised not to be their enemy, they would let her go home. Everyone supported the hero. Estru was interrupted, and she told him not to dare insult her because she was one of the 4 heavenly kings, but her whole body trembled with fear. She tried to compose herself and restrain herself because it humiliated the power of the demon lord. Clenching her fist, she shouted that she had a counter-proposal and, rising to her feet, aimed her sword at Kidden, saying she would fight him one-on-one, and if he won, she would listen to him. Grinzel was outraged by the demon's impudence and said she would punish him now, but Kidden stopped her. He said he had decided that no one would prevent him from living in this world. Plotty blushed and was flattered. The boy raised his sword and said he accepted the challenge of the demon lord. The woman thought how reckless he was and also took a fighting stance. She looked at that man and thought that even if he has strong allies, he is still an ordinary man, so she can catch him. But then she looked closely at the sword and noticed that it was the legendary dark sword named Dr. Schwartz. The sword fell from her hands and she fainted. Everyone was surprised by this, and Kidon asked why she had fainted. Grinsel suggested burying her so she could become fertilizer for their fields, but Kidon stopped the dragon. After some time, Greensel was flying at a great height, holding Astra in her paw, who was trembling with fear. Kitten asked her to return home. She did not like it very much, and the sailors seemed so shocked to see the veil that they decided to leave Astra's and retreat. The girl came to her senses, addressed the dragon, and asked her why she served this man. Grinsel snorted disdainfully and replied with a threatening look that she did not have to explain anything to her. She smiled and thought that no one should know how exquisite the master's dishes were. Astros continued flying in her paw and wondered who this man was who tamed 2 troubles. Some time had passed since the recent events, and Kitten, Platy, and Grizzle looked on in amazement. Before them stood Astra's Bezderdechny with two demons. The boy asked why they had come. The goblin who brought them explained that they wanted to talk to him. Platy rushed to Astra's, shouting for her to leave. Kedin asked her to calm down and find out what had happened. Two demon girls next to her politely asked to be heard, and explained that they were expelled from the Demon King's army. The heroes were surprised, listened to her version, and said it was not true, adding that she was the only one expelled from the army, so she ordered the demons to return. They asked how she could say such a thing, since they had sworn to serve her until the end of their lives. Grinsel in human form was not happy to see this. So she turned into a dragon and ordered them to be silent, or else she would burn them to ashes. Kitten stopped her, threatening to leave her without dinner. The dragon turned away, the stunned demons hid behind Astra's, and the boy asked why Astra's was expelled from the Demon King's army. The woman bowed her head and said that she had failed the mission to capture the princess. Her monster squad was defeated, and that was not all. She added that allowing the dragon to cause chaos on the battlefield was a serious crime, and Kaiden asked which dragon was on the battlefield between humans and demons. After that, he looked at Vale, and she, folding her hands behind her head, replied that she was asked to take her back. Astris concluded that this was why she was stripped of the title of Heavenly King and expelled from the country. The demon girl nearby said that this military meeting was strange because the decision was made very hastily while the demon lord was absent, as if they wanted to get rid of her. Another girl added that behind this stands Mr. Reverian because he is always scheming something, and now this is the work of his hands. Estrez stopped them and said that no one should be blamed because in the demon army nothing was more important than strength, so only she was to blame for her helplessness. Kitten understood from all this that the reason for her exile was the recent riots, and the demons cried because Astras had given herself to the army. Vale angrily asked what she wanted to talk about. Platy cautiously clarified that it was about responsibility for what she had done. Astras responded negatively and said that now she needed to start a new life, so she wanted to find out something. Then she began to say that the local orcs and goblins were stronger than her, that they even had self-awareness and could speak, although usually this was impossible, and that Kitten was revered by two world plagues, the dragon and the Lich King. She clenched her fist and said she wanted to know why, so she knelt down and asked to be allowed to work for the boy. Vale and Platyfish were completely shocked, and the boy calmly answered yes. The girls angrily said they were against it, and the boy shyly replied that he didn't even know if this job would help her in any way. And then he added that since she had decided to leave her past life, settle in new lands, and start everything from scratch, he wanted to help her. Vale laughed ominously and said that they would try to kill him again later. Kitten confidently looked at her and said that he would have to accept the challenge. The girl thought that everyone would benefit from this. The demons next to Asteris also asked to stay, and Kitten replied that he would be very glad. However, he immediately warned that while they were here, shedding blood was forbidden. That was his condition. Vale was displeased that the owner was so naive, and Platy sighed, saying that this was very typical of Kitten, and Astras bowed her head and replied that she agreed, adding that while she was here, she would obey and take on any work. So she asked to be given an order. Kitten rejoiced and said that in that case he would like to ask for something himself. Nearby, the demonic girls introduced themselves as Badami and Baelna. Some time passed, the demons worked with a hose in the fields and did not quite understand why they had been sent there to work. Kitten was not sure if they could handle it, so he thought to entrust them with some household chores. Astros decisively said that she could handle it because it was no harder than weapons, but Emmy objected. She noticed that Estrus was constantly digging in the same spot. Tommy explained that it was a hoe, used to loosen the soil and make garden beds. Estrus realized she was mistaken. Kitten was surprised that she knew this, but Tommy explained that she had experience. However, Astros and Belena are aristocrats, so their skin never had calluses, so she asked to be given everything. Astor objected and said that she had decided to serve the great saint at any cost, so she would manage on her own, and Kitten was glad that these demons were so diligent. After that, the guy said that in that case Badami would go with the goblins to make garden beds. They replied that they understood. Then he told Astros and Baleen that seeds should be planted in these beds every 30 centimeters. The girls also replied that they understood. After some time, they resumed work. Astras and Baelna sat and covered the plants with soil, while Badami loosened the ground. Esther grimaced and felt a sharp pain in her lower back, unable to straighten up fully. She did not expect the work to be so hard, and Baelna suddenly screamed. Astros asked what happened, and the girl replied that something was moving in the soil. Astor's lower back was pinched. They sometimes screamed from pain, sometimes from the disgusting side of the earth. Kaiden looked and thought that it was too much for them. After some time, Astros was walking alongside the orcs and the goblins. She smiled and said that since the hunt was further away, she could show herself. Then she asked Platy what they were hunting. The girl made a square hole because Kedon wanted to replenish the meat supplies. Astros asked to be given this task so she could catch up on field work. Then they heard footsteps and looked ahead. The sounds came from the deepest part of the forest, and everyone froze in anticipation. A herd of square boars appeared before them, running, and Astros shouted to Balna and Baitme to be ready. But something immediately flew past Astros' head. They were orcs and goblins. They instantly dealt with the boars using axes. In a moment, the entire herd was broken, and the humanoid monsters were silent because they were already used to it. Astros was surprised by their strength, and Belina showed them the tools. The axes and sickles were made of mana metal. Platy sighed and said that their tools and weapons were made entirely of manontal, emphasizing what a luxury it was. The demons could not believe it and said that metal of such purity was rare. After that, Baitme said that now she understood why they were so strong. Astros said that was not the case. She explained that these guys were strong from the first meeting, and back then they didn't even have weapons. Balner and Baitme could not believe it. Platy said that if Astros was interested, her hoe was also made of manontal, and the girl shuddered, thinking that the problem was not the weapon, but that they did not know how to use it. She shouted and said that they could no longer just stand, and that they would also go hunting. Later, the herd of boars was killed. Platy thanked everyone for the work. Astros, having received several wounds and breathing heavily, said that they hadn't even started. The orcs and goblins stood as if nothing had happened. The girl thought that given the strength of these boars and hunting in the mountains, she did not expect it to be so hard. Platy licked her lips, rolled up her sleeve, and said it was time to slaughter them. After that, she approached the dead bodies and began processing them, saying that they could not be carried like that, so she would cut them and freeze them. After some time at home, Cadden was cooking soup in the kitchen in a pot from ingredients and tasting it. Then I heard Platy say that they had returned. The boy turned around happily and said it was just in time. He looked out from the kitchen and said that dinner was ready, but seeing the dark demons, he asked what had happened. Platy told him that the whole day had gone differently than they thought. Strez, bowing her head, said that she was one of the 4 heavenly kings feared by both humans and mermaids, and came here after losing that title, and the locals were extremely strong, and their weapons had no equal. And she realized that she was powerless. Kitten confidently replied that she was not powerless. The woman was surprised. The young man explained that it was not about her strength or influence, but about those who swore to be by her side, looking at Bathimim and Balna. They added that this means she has a power called charisma, so she should believe in herself more, and then new paths will open before her. The girls were inspired and looked at each other, impatiently clenching their fists and smiling. Then Kitten said it was time to eat. Vale was very happy. Kitten suggested eating outside because the weather was nice. They placed the dishes on the table in the yard, which looked very appetizing, and sat around. Aster asked what it was because she had never seen such dishes. Vale was also curious. Kitten explained that it was fried wild boar meat with ginger and tangerine soup. The girls were very skeptical about the explanation and cautiously took the plates. Then Astris tried it, and from how delicious it was, she started crying, which scared Kedon. Platy and Vale were also very happy and ate quickly. Kaiden was very glad about this, and told them to eat as much as they wanted, enjoy, and try again tomorrow. Then Astris was carrying a basket with food, and said that she had not seen Kedon and Platy anywhere, and Balna said that they had business at sea. Astris nodded and said she had finished gathering the vegetables, and asked what else needed to be done. Belina replied that the weeds needed to be pulled and the house cleaned. Vale punished Astris to plow and work. She lay on the porch of the house and said that whoever does not plow will die of hunger. Temi asked what would happen to her, and Vale got angry, asking what the smaller demon was mumbling about. She sighed and said she would take care of the house. Temi and Belina did not object, although they were very dissatisfied. Then they shouted that they would guard the house until Caton arrived. At that time on the Platy coast she was in the water, her legs turned back into a tail, and she told Cadden, who was sitting nearby, that sometimes it was necessary to return to such a form. The boy asked her if it was easier for her to live in the sea than on land, and the girl looked at him. Then she confidently replied that it was the same everywhere because her way of transforming into a human was the best. That is why she finds it comfortable to live on land. Kaido smiled. He knew it was not true, but was glad for his wife's tact. Then he asked what she wanted to talk about. She said that sea monsters come ashore here. She said that there are dungeons and caves in the mountains, and of course in the ocean too. Monsters come from there as well. And Kitten asked if fish fertilizer, herring, and starfish are also monsters. Platy nodded and said that some are useful and some not so much, and there is one more monster in the ocean from the top 5 strongest, and Kitten's face darkened. Platyfish said that such an opponent is a trifle. He replied that he would not leave her alone, but did not know how he would breathe underwater. She smiled and said she was ready. Then she took out a plexus and said that it is a device for breathing underwater. She gave it to the boy and told him to put it in his mouth and chew. While he chewed, he could breathe. He started chewing, and Platyfish said not to swallow because it was not ready yet, and he would not be able to breathe if he did not keep chewing. Kitten swallowed and said that he understood everything. The girl froze, asked why he swallowed it, then gave him another one and called him to swim after her. The boy dived underwater and tried to breathe. He succeeded, and he was surprised. Then he saw Platy in front of him, who was happily waving her hand and calling him after her. She was very beautiful. She was always on land, so Kitten began to forget that she was actually a mermaid and swam after her, rejoicing that such a beautiful princess was his wife. Then Kitten blushed, and the girl, seeing this, asked if he was breathing normally and chewing, and Kitten waved his hands and said that everything was fine. When Pleata felt something and turned around, she said that a stream of strong hostility was coming from the salt minerals and other elements. Kitten began to look in the same direction, thinking about what was there, and a huge fish with shining eyes appeared before the heroes. Platy shouted that it was her, the spotted moray. The fish hissed loudly and swam straight at the heroes, scaring Kitten. The girl shouted that she would not let it move, so the boy had to deal with it further, after which she threw the potion bottles. They hit the body of the spotted moray, causing it to catch fire and scream loudly. The man was surprised by the fire underwater and noticed his wife's surprise. He drew his sword, looked at it, and swung with all his might. The spotted moray split in half before them. Platy showed that her husband was the strongest of all, and the boy was very surprised by his strength. The fish's body sank to the bottom. Then Kitten noticed and began to wave his hands. Platy said that since the problem was solved, they could go home. But the man attracted attention and gestured that this was not all yet, after which he began to dive to the bottom. He began cutting seaweed from the bottom with a sword. Plenty did not understand the meaning of his actions and said that this seaweed was useless even in magic. However, their rapid growth caused trouble. She asked him what he wanted to do with them, and the boy smiled. They surfaced, and after some time on land, the boy began cutting them, humming about the taste. They cooked on stones in a pot. The kitten explained that the seaweed was similar to wakame and wanted to cook it with moray eel. Platy asked if he really wanted to prepare a dish with moray eel and seaweed. Kinnan said he decided to try, then picked up the plate and said that only salt and pepper remained to be sprinkled, and the dish was ready. Wakame and moray eel soup from another world. Platyfish looked skeptically at the plate and tried it, immediately shining with joy because of the taste. She could not believe that this useless ingredient was so tasty and crunchy. Kitten said he was glad she liked it. Although it seemed useless, it turned out to be useful. He also said that a lot of salt was needed to wash off all the slime, so he would leave the moray eel there and go home, and Platyfish said she would help. She added that this taste would surprise everyone, and her respect for the man sharply increased. They finished the dish. The boy was embarrassed and asked about it again, and Platy said not to doubt it. Kitten said that it was not only his merit because many people helped him. Platy was surprised by these words, and the young man reminded her that they started living here together, and because of neighbors and new residents, it became too noisy. Therefore, he increasingly understands how important support is, and Platy was pleased by such words, but the boy added that he realized something else. Namely, that they need to spend more time together. The girl was surprised, and Kitten explained that they are newlyweds. Platy blushed, and the hero suggested that she come back here to swim together once more. The girl agreed. She also added that she needed to make a new underwater breathing device so that he could speak too, and the man nodded. At this time in the demon castle, the man summarized that Astra's Bezderdechny, one of the 4 kings, was not only excluded from the army but also exiled, and they began discussing the assembly where the next king would be chosen. But the man interrupted them and said that no one would allow Asteris to be expelled. One of the men replied that, as already said, she made a serious mistake. The man with a grim face called the narrator, Reverian the Poor, and told him not to pretend to be poor because it was his own fault. Then the man stood up, drew a sword from its sheath, and pressed it to Raverian's throat. He said that this was treason. Arveri, trembling with fear, began begging for mercy and addressed the man with the sword as a demon, Lord Zadin. Zidin told Raverian to settle this mess before his return, at least so that Zidin could take responsibility. Raverian bowed his head, and another man nearby activated him, handing over a note and saying that these were the coordinates. Zedin replied that he understood. then remembered Kitten and thought that even the demon lord could make a move when enraged. A little in the past, other summoned heroes. This girl, Momoko Akasaka, was completely ordinary. More precisely, she used to be. She was at that moment fighting an horde of monsters, using the spell Divine Scythe of the second level. With one swing, the ground between the girl and the horde split, and all the monsters died, falling onto the shattered earth. Momoko was summoned from another world. She was given the skill Divine Side, level 2, and now she fights demons for the people. The girl found it hard to get used to this world. There are no familiar conveniences or electronics here. Food and clothing are of poor quality. Bread can kill a person. Fleece jumping on the bed. Rough clothing irritates the skin. Many summoned could not adapt and died. When Momoko was summoned, about 10 remained, and she wonders how many are left. She thought that maybe he had left, the man who turned out to have no skills at all. Because in this cruel world, survival without skills is impossible, but Momoko Akasaka is different. She has a wonderful talent, so the king values her and she should not forget how lucky she is. That is why she fights alone, possessing one of the strongest abilities in the world, and slashes through monsters. There is no end in sight. The demon army seems endless. Wherever you look, there are monsters everywhere. She looks at them and thinks this is the front line. She will not lose and cannot lose, so she will protect this world. But at that moment, above the girl fighting the Demon King's army, a huge dragon flew by. Everyone below froze in fear, and Momoko Akasaka could not believe her eyes and shouted that it was a dragon. One of the calamities of this world. No one could take their eyes off it, but seeing it meant death. Even for them, it was a monster, so no one understood why it was here. Even Momoko, the summoned hero with the skill to kill with one strike, could not defeat this monster, and others also shouted that they were retreating because it would destroy them with one breath. Everyone wondered if this dragon came to destroy them all. The dragon descended to the ground. He spoke and ordered everyone to listen to him, addressing them as if they were lower tribes, and the people were surprised because they did not expect dragons to be able to speak. The dragoness introduced herself as the daughter of Greaser, the great king of the dragons of Grinzelvale, and said that today the master ordered her to return that slob whom he had thrown from his claws. Astras the Heartless fell before everyone. The demons immediately recognized her and ordered them to capture her as soon as possible. Vale explained that Astras was initially doomed to death, but the master decided otherwise, so he ordered everyone to listen and not miss a single word. She said that demons or humans do not matter, but if they offend her master, she will burn their cities to ashes with this fire. She will release a fiery breath into the air. Everyone around saw this burst of fire. People and demons barely stood on their feet. Most of them fell to the ground from the flow of magic, and Momoko was struck by this terrible power. Then Vale said that everyone must know that her master was the Saint Coden, ordered never to forget this name, because the enemy of the saint will become her enemy, and then she flew away. People, many of whom were sitting on the ground, spoke the name of the Saint Kavidon and were surprised that even the dragon obeyed him, but no one knew who he was. Now this was the home of Kitten and Platy. They had built several buildings and plowed many fields ahead, and Kitten was eating with chopsticks and drinking from a glass, smiling, pleased with the taste. He stood up and said that today he also had to work in the field, looked at the mountains and the distance, and stretched. Then he heard someone approaching and turned around. A male voice asked him if he was Saint Kitten. The boy looked at the man in surprise, agreed, and asked who he was. He replied that he was the demon lord Zadin. Kitten was embarrassed. Temi and Baelna called Kedon and joyfully shouted that they had finally succeeded. They carried the animal's body on sticks and said that Lady Astras had finally caught her prey and tried very hard. But the woman's expression changed when Zidane called her name, and she raised her eyes, not expecting to see him. The demon lord said in surprise that she was really here. The woman looked at him with confusion. She asked how he managed to find her, and the man replied that her subordinates left the code. Butami and Belina watched this scene with joy. Astros wondered why he came. The demon lord replied that he came to visit her. The subordinates looked at them eagerly, and Kitten did not understand the atmosphere. Astra said that she had failed the mission, and therefore was no longer one of the 4 kings, so now she was unnecessary to him. She added that Zadin always cared a lot about her, but she did not want to be criticized afterward. The demon lord said anxiously that he did not care because she was very important to him. The woman felt uncomfortable because of these words. Platy was shocked, and Vale said that this drama annoyed her. After some time, they entered the house. Kitten prepared hot tea for everyone. Zidane apologized for causing them trouble with his presence. Then he introduced himself as the supreme ruler of all demons, Zadin. Kitten asked if that meant he was the leader of the demon country. The man nodded. The hero inquired if there would be any problems because he left the country. Zadin replied no. He explained that the main duty of the demon lord is to protect the country from humans. This task was given to him by the previous lord, and to fulfill it, he fights on the battlefield day after day. Kitten replied that he understood, and Plate said that when you fight so often, probably no one waits for you at home. Zidane replied that that is exactly why he is glad to have Asterisk, because she always responds, is very capable, and simply irreplaceable. The woman was very embarrassed and said that she did not deserve such praise. Her subordinates were glad to see it. Gideon said he would never expel Astras. Zadana agreed. He said that Astras was summoned to a military court and sentenced to exile precisely when he was commanding at the front line. They did not ask the suzerain for permission and did everything their own way. Sedan said that Astras was accused of the accidental appearance of a dragon that sowed chaos on the battlefield. Vale indifferently hummed a song, and Cadden listened, confused and silent. The man said that when he finally returned, Astras was no longer there. Kidden decided that he came here to look for her. Zedin took Astros by the hand and said that he was very glad she was here because he did not know what he would do without her, and that he thought he had lost her forever. Plotty replied that everything was clear between them and their love was obvious. The woman blushed and said that they were just childhood friends. She added that they will achieve nothing because the ruler must care for the whole country, and they are not worthy of his care. Rincel Vale was boiling with rage all the time and couldn't stand it. She ordered them to be silent. She shouted that it didn't matter whether he was the master or someone else. Let him take Asteris and go. Zidane asked who she was, and Asteris was very scared. The woman explained that it was Grinzel Vale, a dragon who flew to the battlefield. She looked disdainfully at the demons. Zadin said confusedly that he could not believe it, looking at the girl before him. Vale angrily said that she was asked to return Astras, and she did not like to strain her wings for a rude girl who appeared at her master's doorstep. Kirin turned to Weil with displeasure, and she said she understood and would be silent, while Zidane looked at them confused. He addressed Kedidin and said that Astros lives in a very dangerous company and her life is in their hands, but the demon lord clenched his fist and declared that he would return the woman at any cost. After that, he stood up and confidently said that this was exactly why he asked to be allowed to fight him. Kedin was very surprised. The man added that he takes his title seriously and therefore must show his fighting spirit. The hero began to object, and Platty told him not to even dream about it. Then she added that her husband is the Lord of the Vale, one of the world's catastrophes, and here there is also the undead king. She asked if he had heard of such a thing, and then said that he cannot win. Zidane asked if it was true, and Astras confirmed. He did not say that everything was not as he thought, and the woman belonged only to herself, so she could go with Zidane. The hero said that she came to him when she was searching for the meaning of life and wanted to understand her possibilities, but since there is someone who cares deeply about her and wants her to return, it is better to pay attention to him. The man asked her about the decision and added that Zadin told her about his feelings, so she should also try. The woman felt flattered by these words. Her subordinates rejoiced, and Vale was also glad because he understood that she could leave. Asteris squeezed his hand and said that she always wants to follow him, whether on the battlefield or in the afterlife, and asked to be allowed to be near him. Zadin agreed and suggested she return home and never leave him again. The woman was happy about this. Her subordinates were glad that their lady was no longer a failure without a title. Vale was also happy, and Keaton, seeing this, shed a tear. Then Platty angrily told them to stop, standing up from the sofa, and everyone looked at her in surprise. Kin asked what happened, and the girl explained that, with all due respect to the demon lord, he is very naive. Woodlouse was smarter and addressed the man as if he were to become her future husband. Zidane asked who she was, and Platty introduced herself as the princess of the mermaids. And then she said that the demonic nobles wanted to arrange a political marriage between her and Zadin. The demon lord was shocked. He stood up and asked who said that, because he was hearing it for the first time. The man then sat next to Astras and said that there was nothing between him and Platty. Keded nodded, understanding. He explained that whoever marries the mermaid princess will also receive the mermaid's resources. Platty nodded in agreement. And then she quoted the words of the demonic nobles, who said that the mermaids must unite with them, and they would give the princess in marriage to their king. Asteris's subordinates were surprised by such politics. Platty said that if you think about it, the demon lord knew neither about his own wedding nor about the exile of his most loyal supporter, which means that one of his subordinates was plotting a conspiracy against him. All the demons immediately decided that it could only have been Reverian. Platty said that when she became Kitten's wife, he sent Astras after her, and when she failed the mission, Reverian got rid of Astras and thereby strengthened his power. Zidane thought and realized that until he dealt with him, returning Astra was pointless because everyone would remind him of her failure. Plenty said that at best he could lose supporters, and at worst he would be forced to abdicate the throne. Kedon was shocked by this, but Failed was not worried. Then the hero said that he was very sorry, because the man was sincere and honest, and the very thought that some scoundrel would rule the demon land was unpleasant to him. Zidane and Astras were shocked by the hero's words, and Platy said that actually all problems could be solved immediately. She called the demon Lord and Astras, and said that they should return not as Lord and subordinate, but as husband and wife. The girl suggested that they get married right here and immediately. The demons were shocked and embarrassed by this proposal. Timmy and Baelna were very happy that the demon Lord and Lady Astras were getting married, although they did not believe it. Zidane said that it was very unexpected for him, and he himself was not sure. Platy asked him what he was dissatisfied with. Asteris, blushing with shame, said no way. Platy replied that there was no need to react like that, and explained that if the woman became queen, it would be the worst outcome for the conspirators who wanted to overthrow her. She added that if any of the demons wanted to get as close to power as possible, marrying off a daughter or sister to the Lord would be the shortest way. Kidding nodded, understanding. He said that if Sedan and Astras got married, the conspirators would be left with nothing, and he firmly confirmed this. Then she said that this was exactly what they had decided, and the embarrassed Astras, who did not utter a word, wanted to object. The lady looked at her angrily, and the woman asked what she would have to do if they got married, and the girl smiled, saying that it was a good question. She replied that to get married, one must exchange vows before God. Zadin and Astros held hands and thought about the vow before God. The demon's subordinates were happy, and Kaiden asked for details. Platy said she would explain now, and with excitement told them that they must take vows in the presence of God, then no one will be able to challenge their marriage. He did not think but remembered that in his previous world, to officially register a marriage, one had to fill out a form at the district office. But he still asked what exactly needed to be done for this oath. Platy praised him for the question and said that now they would find out. After some time, the undead king appeared and asked why he was summoned. Zedin was shocked that the immortal king had come. He also said that the rumors about Sint, having controlled 2 world disasters, were true, and Vale was outraged that he had been told this many times already. Zedin looked at the open veil and said that the child is a dragon. Estrez confirmed. Kedin asked Plata why she summoned the king of the undead. The girl smiled and said that he would be a witness at their wedding. Zadin and Astra were shocked by this news. Platy explained that the undead king was once the high priest, so through him God would observe during the oath exchange, and Kedon recalled the wedding ceremony from his world. Platy eagerly asked the undead king what he thought about it, and the king replied that Zadin and Astras belonged to the demon race, and he himself, although undead, previously served the human race. The girl shuddered and fell to her knees, saying she was mistaken, and Kitten did not understand her reaction and asked what happened. Platy explained that each race worships different gods. Humans believe in Zeus, mermaids in Poseidon, demons in Hades. That is, each race has its own god. He did not understand what the girl meant and thought it was like calling a monk to church. The girl screamed because of what she had done. The undead king said he would try. Plenty asked in surprise if he could. The immortal king said that over more than 1,000 years he had accumulated much knowledge, and although religions differ, he knew how to pray, and Plenty was very glad about this news. Then she turned to Zadin and Astras and asked if it suited them, and the woman replied that of course not and thanked her. The undead king extended his hand and said he would start now, then began to recite a spell, asking for prosperity that would bear fruit, and Temi and Balin were frightened, while Cadden and Vale were cautious. The king continued to recite the spell, saying that he takes them into his depths and shares the blessing of the mother goddess so that this place becomes a sanctuary. He asked to be cleansed as they wished. Around the rumble grew louder, and the undead king shouted, raising his hand. A huge magical sign appeared in the sky, and lightning struck. Estrez and Zidane looked around. Cadden asked what was happening. Platy replied that it was the prayer of the undead king, and added that the air seemed to press down. Then they noticed that behind the huge air currents, something was appearing, and they looked in that direction. In the center of the magical seal, a huge man with a staff in his hands appeared in the sky, dressed in a cloak and a crown. Aster immediately recognized that it was the god of the underworld kingdom Hades, and Kitten screamed from shock. The undead king did not expect this, and calmly said that he had overdone it, and summoned the god himself. Platy was surprised how someone could do such a thing. He explained that he was going to create a holy place for the ritual, so it was strange that the god appeared, and Platy shouted that it no longer mattered and asked what they should do. At that moment, Hades said that no one had called him for years and asked why he was here. Temi and Balina immediately assumed that the children of Zeus had unleashed the last war and were very frightened. Zadin fell to his knees and said that it was not true, explained that the war was going with varying success. Demons should not relax their vigilance, but Hades had nothing to worry about, and the god of the underworld kingdom asked why he was then summoned. Zadin apologized and introduced himself as the Lord of Demons. Kidin was surprised to be talking to a god. The man bowed his head and said that he wanted to marry the chosen one of his heart. So they decided to arrange a wedding ceremony and prayed for the blessing of the god of the underworld, but mistakenly summoned him personally, and the undead king himself also apologized. Sedan asked to accept their sincere apologies for disturbing his peace. Hades learned that he was called by the immortal king and said that there was nothing strange about it. After that, he agreed and said that to receive his blessing, Zidin must not have other wives, and asked the Lord, who was bowing before him, if he promised to love only one woman for life. Zidin replied that this is what he wants and swore that he, the Lord of Demons, would marry only Prosperous and live with her all his life. Hades replied that it was well said, then extended his hand and said that he gives his blessing. After some time, the weather returned to normal, and the god of the underworld disappeared. Zadin rose from his knee and took Astros by the hand. He did not consider that the god Hades was bad. Everyone was dissatisfied because he was so loud that her ears hurt. The king of the undead agreed and said that next time he would be more careful with his prayers. Joyful Plady ran up to the demons and said that it was very good that they received a direct blessing from God, because it is the strongest intercession from heaven. The king of the undead wished good health, easy childbirth and fertility, and divine punishment would befall those who tried to separate them. Temi and Belina were glad that they succeeded, and Zidin replied that for the demons, this was the best proof of his love for Astras. Kaiden thought that an oath before God would really be better than a marriage registration. The Lord of Demons addressed Kidden and Pledy and said that he was very grateful to them because thanks to them his dream of marrying Astras, which he had almost given up on, came true. Astras, with tears of joy in her eyes, also said that she would never forget their kindness. Kidden waved his hand and said that he did nothing, but was truly happy for her. Astras was flattered by these words. Zedin asked if they would return immediately and inform everyone at home that she was now their queen. The woman refused Zadin, saying that she would stay here a little longer, and Zadin and Kidden were surprised by this decision. Grinzelvale was very upset and told the woman to leave. She said that since they were already married, they should go to their homeland. Kidden called the girl to stop. And then he asked Astros why she really wanted to stay. Zidin also looked at her with incomprehension. The woman replied that she had changed and learned a lot under Cadence's guidance, so she wanted to continue her studies, and added that she was doing this to become a worthy wife, addressing Zadin. The man was stunned but said that perhaps the woman had her reasons, then turned to Kedon and asked him to also take care of Astra a little longer, while Temi and Blaine looked at them worriedly. Kidden replied that he did not object, and the shocked Vale wanted to send them away as soon as possible to avoid sharing food, and then the hero added that he simply did not know how he could help, especially since they had just married, and he felt awkward separating them. Zedin also asked if they would mind if he stayed here a little while. Astra was surprised by these words, and Kidden was embarrassed. He asked if it would cause any harm. Plotty and Vale were also confused. He did not ask if it would cause inconvenience for the demons. The Lord of Demons replied that if only for a short time, then no. He explained that because of the dragon, both camps fell into chaos, so while gathering information, the troops would not move. Kidden shouted that he understood. Vale was angry because she was blamed. Zedin asked if Kidden objected, and Kidden replied that of course not, they could feel at home, and then he thought that they would also have to build themselves a home. She asked if they were sane, and reminded them that there was a conspirator among them, and if so, they would simply leave him. They regretted that if they were not there, he could continue his conspiracies and doubted if they really wanted that, and the subordinates of Astros, Plady, and Kidden thought about it. But Zedin smiled confidently and said there was no need to worry because he had already arranged everything, laughed ominously. Kidden admiringly noted that this was to be expected from the Lord of Demons, and Vale was displeased. She pointed at Zadin and said he was strange because he had no ship, and asked how he got here, and Plady and Kidden were also interested. The man explained that this could be done using teleportation magic. If there are coordinates, one can move instantly. Kidden happily said that this was very convenient. Zedin then turned to Astro's subordinate Belen, who shuddered at this, and told her that she was, after all, one of the few spatial demons. Before coming here, she left a note with coordinates that the demon lord was able to pass to the port. Temi hugged Balina and said that she was fine, which confused the girl. Balina replied that she was worried that they would have to part because of some conspiracy. The demon lord thanked Balina for her help, and Vale angrily thought that she would never forgive her. Platyfish interrupted the conversation and said that although she did not want to doubt there are other space magics, the girl asked if they would come here. Zadin told her not to worry. Because the coordinates of this place are encrypted, if the one who set them does not give the key for decryption, they are useless. The demon lord also added that this place is inaccessible to the perception of other people, and Kitten and Vale looked at him in surprise. Zidane explained that currently the demon race uses space magic and clairvoyance, and thanks to this, mages can see places far from them. However, this place is completely surrounded by protection that cancels such magic. The heroes were surprised by this information. Zedin said that he took a risk by teleporting, but thanks to Balin, he was able to get here. Tammy gestured to let her know that she was okay. The demon lord concluded that they would not be able to get into this place and would not even understand where it was, and he did not answer that he understood. But the boy asked who cast such a useful spell. Vale puffed her cheeks, repeating after him. The undead king replied that such magic could be within the power of a dragon. If he was not mistaken, they looked at Vale. The dragon in human form said that she was exposed and confirmed her involvement, and added that after she left Astros on the battlefield, she returned and surrounded the entire area with a barrier. Vale was still very angry, because if it weren't for Astros, she would have eaten more. Balena was afraid of this. Kitten looked at Vale and, kneeling before her, said that she cared about him very much and he was very grateful for that. The dragon said that it was clear, because only she had to eat all the host's dishes, but freeloaders came one after another, and at this pace she would have nothing left at all, and the subordinates of Plotty and Astros were stunned by these words. Balan said that she hated them because of the food, but Timmy and Astros nodded. Kaiden put his hand on her hair and stroked it, saying that she was kind and always protected him. She liked it and confirmed with a smile. Kaiten joyfully announced that today they would hold a celebration in honor of the wedding of Astros and Zedin, and also reward Vale for her efforts. The undead king enthusiastically asked if he could join. Kitten smiled and agreed. Zadin and Astros thanked him. After some time, they brought a table outside with a large amount of food. Kedin said that he congratulated the Lord of Demons and Asteris on the wedding. Zidane tried the dishes for the first time, so Astros looked at him excitedly, and Baitme and Belina were happy. The Lord of Demons was surprised by the taste and said that it was the first time he tried such a delicious dish. Kitten replied that he was very glad that he liked it. Then the boy brought Vale a huge plate of meat, and she was very happy, holding 2 spoons in her hands. After tasting, she opened her eyes and turned into a dragon, loudly praising the food and breathing fire, and Kitten made a remark to her not to transform at the table and not to breathe fire. She became human again and excused herself, saying that she had never eaten such delicious meat before. Zedin was surprised that she was really a dragon, and Kedin smiled. Then he explained that it was meat from a Kurosaki deer, which Adarisk caught for them that day. The woman did not expect this. After that, he said that he skillfully cut the meat and marinated it in magical spices, and Kitten realized that this dish was prepared not only by himself, but also by others, and Vale was impressed. And then she laughed wickedly and said that it could not be otherwise, because all these low creatures must serve her master and her. Platy angrily threatened to hit her now, and Astras replied that she would gladly try. Kidding smiled and said that even with such an attitude, Vale did a lot for them. Platy noted that she still needs to work a lot on her character. The girl tasted the meat and said that Vuel was right. Her husband's dishes really must remain a secret, and Zidane agreed, noting that such delicacies are not even seen in palaces. He nodded and said that now he understood why the dragon wanted to hide this place. Astras thought anxiously. Plet asked Cadden when he learned to cook so deliciously, and Cadden was surprised and replied that he lived alone, had to survive somehow, and did nothing special. He also said that thanks to the skill he acquired, he was able to recreate ingredients and cuisine unknown to this world. He believes that this skill helps him cook even better. The boy handed the plate to the undead king and said that whatever it was, he was glad they liked it. At that moment, Astro approached him and asked if his dishes were a state secret. Vale replied that it was a state secret, and Kitten objected that it was not a secret at all. The woman knelt down and turned to the boy. He was surprised and asked what had happened. Astras said she wanted to ask him once more. She asked him to take her to work and teach her everything a good wife should know. Kitten and the others were very surprised by these words. Plenty got angry and asked angrily why Astros was asking this from a strange man, and the woman apologized and smiled quietly, saying she could not do it. Plotty got angry and frowned, saying that she only knows how to wave her hand chops, and Kedun calmed her down, saying that she is also very good at other things. He noted that it is thanks to her that he grows the harvest and cooks delicious dishes, and Plotty was very happy about this and looked at him sweetly. Kitten returned to the demonic Queen Astras and said that it would be better if someone like Koku took care of her. The woman refused and said that as the obedient wife of the demon lord, she must overcome all difficulties herself. Baitme and Belina were proud of their lady. Cadden smiled and said how sincere she was. Zedin thought for a moment, then turned to Cadden and asked him to allow him to train as well. Cadden was surprised and asked what exactly he meant. The boy asked him if he wanted to undergo wedding training at Zadin Grid and said that it is a very interesting place. Not only the kitchen but also the harvest for their own buildings. In his opinion, everything here is fascinating, so he says he understands why Astros wants to study here. Moreover, he wants to reciprocate the woman's desire to support her, as her husband does. He also shares his thoughts on how a married couple should support each other, as Kitten does. The man was pleased to hear such words, and Platty noted that it is not surprising because he was different from other kings who only showed off in their castles. Sedan repeated once again that he counts on Saint Kitten. Asteris also confirmed these words. Some time passed, orcs and goblins were building a new building. Zedin worked together with them and asked Kitten how he was doing. He replied that everything was fine. And he said that he was very skillful with his hands, so he appreciated it. At that moment, Astros called the man. She came in an apron and gloves, brought food, and said everything was ready. Zidane blushed deeply. Astros asked in surprise why he reacted that way, and he replied that it was nothing special because he felt as if he were in heaven. The hero sat down again at the table outside, piled with a large amount of food. Keaton said how delicious everything was. Vale supported him, eating quickly, and Platyfish praised Astros and noticed that the Demon King was crying from the taste. He asked what the dish was called, and Asteris said it was Nikajaba. Kedin noted that Asteris had cooked most of it herself, and Zadin could not believe it. The boy explained that since she was a swordswoman, she was already used to holding a kitchen knife, and she only needed to learn the process and the specifics of the ingredients and seasonings, otherwise she could leave. Baitme and Belena supported her. The woman thanked them and then thought about what else was needed for the engagement. But Emmy said that it was, of course, clothing and that they needed to learn to sew, then looked at the Demon King and noticed that he was in an ordinary shirt, and Zidane replied that he got it from Saint Kidin. Bitemio was surprised that Kidon did this, but he agreed and explained that as a man he can sew clothes for other men as well. However, he has already promised to sew clothes for Platty, but simply cannot come up with a design. He also said that he already had some fabric with him, took it from the table, and asked to wait a little. Kidin brought 3 rolls and said that was all he had, but he was surprised and excited because she had never seen such beautiful fabric before. The man said that he had previously explored a mountain dungeon where he found a caterpillar that spat out threads. As an experiment, he brought some home and made special enclosures for them, which surprised Platty. Then Kitten said that he had the opportunity to make this fabric from caterpillars. Everyone fell silent in surprise. But Temi, holding the roll of fabric in her hands, found it hard to believe that fabric could be made from caterpillar droppings, and Balina noted that his ideas were too unusual for this world, as expected. After that, Bathami's eyes lit up, and she asked if it was possible to sew clothes for girls from fabric made of caterpillars. Kiting asked if she could do it, and Aster's subordinate agreed because her parents owned a fabric store and she was well versed in it. Asteris was surprised because she did not know about this. Belina remarked that it was wonderful. Temi asked to be given it, and Cadden replied that she was his savior, and Asteris also offered to help because it was part of her training. Then Baitme said that in that case she wanted to start by sewing clothes for Miss Platty. The girl smiled and agreed. She was curious to see what they would come up with. Baitme took a rope and said that when everything was settled, she would start by measuring her parameters. She pulled the rope with a sly smile. Platty did not understand Baitme's expression, and Kidden thought that it was impossible for him. She also said that she knew that clothes were first sewn for Platty, but she would sew for everyone, so she politely asked permission to take measurements from everyone, and Platty asked how she wanted everyone to take off their clothes. She did it with a light hand movement, which made Batami scream and blush deeply. Then she asked if Platty always went without underwear, and the girl wondered what the word commando meant. And then she remembered that when she first met her husband, he reacted the same way. Asteris noted that she really was a mermaid and had no idea that she needed to wear clothes on the lower part of her body. Platyfish asked if there was a problem with that, and Baitme replied in surprise that there was. Astrosi explained that for them, for demons, and for people who live here on the surface, exposing the lower part of the body is considered a crime. Plenty screamed and said that no one had told her about this, and Asterisk replied that no one thought she would walk around like that. Then the mermaid princess recalled that she sometimes saw her brother putting something on his body and explained to me that it is called underwear. Platy said that, in summary, she understood that underwear is formal attire for diplomatic occasions, but Tammy seemed to think that Platy still considered it formal. After that, she enthusiastically asked to be given everything, assuring that she would show her why such clothing is wonderful, and Plenty replied that she did not quite understand but hoped for her. The girl began taking measurements, and Batamy asked Petty if she was sucking in her stomach, which made Petty blush. Then Petty said she had never been so worried about her husband's food before, and Batamy replied that it was normal. The girl continued measuring the other girls, and loudly said that Miss Astro's stomach turned out to be fuller than she had imagined. Belina replied that it was the power of love. Astros awkwardly ordered her to be quiet, and Vela watched what these annoying girls were doing. After some time, the work was finished, and Budemy happily said that the ruffles on her dress were inspired by sea waves and their blue color, and suited a mermaid princess like Platy. Kitten and Zedin were also delighted. Batemy asked the girl if she liked it. Platy replied that it was very unusual and she was satisfied. Kitten thanked her and said he was incredibly happy. Batemy blushed at these words. Then Platy approached him, and he replied that it really suited her. She also said that Batemy had sewn underwear for her. Kaiden was embarrassed by this phrase, and Platy asked if that was also considered unacceptable, to which the boy agreed. The mermaid princess said that it did not matter because when her brother did it, it was wonderful. Kitten thought that next time he would definitely be that close to his wife's brother. Vale kept looking strangely at Platy's clothes and ignited a ball of fire in her hand, which she threw at Platy. The girl screamed loudly, asked what she was doing, and looked at the ball, and Kitten also did not understand and asked what was going on, thinking she was jealous, to which Vale replied that it was better to just be silent and watch. The flame went out, the dress remained completely undamaged. The mermaid princess looked at this with surprise. She began to touch the fabric and asked why it hadn't even burned, because there were no traces. Vale explained that the fabric was embedded with a lot of anti-magic. The dragon in human form said she was sure that this also had high protective power, and considered that this dress was much better than ordinary armor. Platy asked what Batamy had done to him, but Batamy, confused, replied that she had done absolutely nothing. Baelna said that if that was true, she was very curious why. Platy suggested that the caterpillar had such an ability. They asked Kita if he had done anything with the caterpillars, and the boy replied that he had just handled them very carefully, while hoping to sew nice clothes for Platy from them. Vale replied that she was sure of this, and explained that orcs and goblins had changed after meeting Kitten, and probably the same had happened with this caterpillar. The boy said he understood, and Vale was surprised that this was the birth of another legendary armor, but Temmie objected that it was not armor, but fashion. Everyone turned to Batemy and asked her to make the same armor for her as soon as possible. The girl still denied that it was armor. However, Kitten was grateful for such strong clothing. He noticed that the Demon King's clothes were originally cotton and intended for futons, so they could ask Boatme to remake it for themselves. Zidane noted that this was again one of those daily surprises. At that moment, a store looked at him, and this caught his attention. She said that his clothes were a little torn, and he had probably caught on something while working. He saw a small cut on the side, and said he couldn't believe he had made a hole in the shirt that Kitten gave him. Astra said she would fix it, then got embarrassed and added that she had only recently learned, so she was not very skilled yet. The Lord of Demons looked at her, thanked her, and said he would trust her then. Everyone watched as Zadin took off his shirt, and Asterisk sewed the hole in it, and Kitten thought it would be fine if the Demon King held onto that shirt a little longer. The whole action took place in the human kingdom. Some voice said that he hated the dragon. It was the king's voice. He, sipping a drink from a goblet, thought that because of this dragon the war had reached a dead end. The advisor says that according to the generals at the front, the reason for the dragon's appearance is still unknown. Therefore, the armies were advised not to move. The king is outraged by the cowardice of the army and generals. He asks about the master whom the dragon obeys. According to him, this person's name is St. Kitten. The advisor says there is no information about this. His Majesty, sipping a drink from a glass, says that all these people are good for nothing. The advisor sincerely apologizes. Then His Majesty throws the glass on the floor. The advisor sees all this. His Majesty orders the advisor to bring another glass of freshly squeezed fish juice. The advisor immediately agrees with His Majesty. The advisor does not understand how His Majesty can drink this filth. His Majesty says the situation is simply terrible. He sighs and thinks that they could have won the war that lasted for centuries. His Majesty Janxis XVII must put an end to this war between the human and demon races. To win, he used all the power of the Mana country and summoned heroes from a parallel world. His Majesty believes that if they defeat the demon race, they will be able to use their power for their own purposes and for the benefit of the country, and that will be enough. At that moment, the advisor brings His Majesty the fish juice. His Majesty believes that first they need to deal with the dragon. Then he asked the advisor if he really believes in the existence of the Dragon Lord, and the advisor said that many people also doubt this. The advisor says that if they make the wrong move, they will simply provoke it. If the dragon appears again, destruction will be inevitable. Sipping juice, the king did not even pay attention to the advisor's words. Suddenly he had a thought about destruction. After such words, he immediately came to his senses. His Majesty suddenly places the glass on the throne, and the juice splashes in all directions. He forces the advisor to find Sankedin. If he becomes their subject, they will definitely be able to win. The advisor says that this may indeed be so, but he does not know how to find this person, and His Majesty says that the advisor must create a search party of capable heroes. The advisor says that there are rumors of a civil war in the demon capital. His Majesty became even angrier and says that he does not care. He says that he will temporarily disband the army. He orders to dedicate all the country's resources to Saint Codon. The advisor immediately agrees with His Majesty. His Majesty says that he will definitely find Saint Codon, and then humanity will declare its victory. At that moment, in another place and another time, there stood a house in classic Japanese style. Inside, someone was pouring a drink into a cup. It was a man and a woman who were pleasantly spending time. The man says that 2 months have passed since they arrived here. The girl says that they could learn a lot here. The man takes a few sips of the drink and sighs heavily. At first, he suggests the girl feel the sword again. He takes out the sword and looks at it with admiration. The girl asks the man, who is the Demon King, about his worries. The Demon King turns to the girl named Prosperous and says that the sacred sword ain't loth is restless. The Demon King says that the sword seems to resonate with someone. Prosperous was silent for a while, but then she remembered something. After some time, they set out to the place where they tried to find the Holy Lord Cadden. He loudly replied to them that he was here, and then asked the Demon King about his problem. The Demon King addresses the Holy Lord, who holds a sword, and asks about the object in Kitten's hands. Kitten says that this sword is very useful and can cut through everything, and he even just cut through mana metal with it. Lady says that this is a sacred sword they picked up in the dungeon of the undead king teacher. She says the sword is being used incorrectly. The Demon King never thought that the Holy Lord of the Trickster would have the legendary devil sword Dreshvars, and Norio says that he was going to return the sword to his teacher, but the sword simply would not leave him. The Flesh Princess addresses Norio and says that he was the one who protected her from the undead king, and Norio says that at that time there was no other choice, and he did not understand the power given to him by the gods. The Demon Lord and the girl beside him were surprised by Norio's words, and he says that according to his legend, the power of the saint, granted by the gods, can become the power of a hero. Norio remembers that the teacher of the undead king also spoke about something similar, and the Demon King addresses Lord St. Norio and suggests that he might be one of the heroes humanity summoned from a parallel world. Norio thinks and tells the Demon King that there is some truth in his words. The Demon King doubts his words. Norio says a little nervously that, as the whole team has already guessed, he really came from a parallel world, and Nor says that he has no combat skills, so the Demon King expelled him from the war and was surprised by Norio's words. Therefore, Norio began a nomadic life on this land, far from people. The Demon King cannot believe it. The girl addresses Norio and says that it must have been difficult, and Norio replies no and kneels, taking a handful of earth. Clenching his hand into a fist, he shows how he uses his power, and from an ordinary handful of earth, he grows a small flower. The Demon Lord watches in surprise as the bud sprouts. Norio says that this is a gift from the gods for him, perfect for a peaceful life. The Demon King understood everything and said that this might be a miraculous power, but it is not suitable for battle, so to become stronger than the undead king, Norio must do something. Suddenly, Norio says that he can use the power given to him for other purposes. For example, he can reveal the potential of everything he touches. The Demon King and Astros are amazed by the maximum power of Drya Schwarz's Devil Ball. Norio says that this power does not make him the strongest. The Demon King says in a slightly trembling voice that there is no creature in this world that could possess Norio's power. The Demon King contemplates the power that the gods of humanity gave to Norio and asks him if he wants to prove his superiority over humans and return to his kingdom. To this, Nor says that he does not intend to do that. Perhaps it would be rude to the Demon King, who is waging war against humanity, but Norio is not connected to any of them. Noria says that he belongs to no one, so he can marry Princess Plotty. Princess Plotty, Shaylee, addresses her husband. The Demon King also addresses the Holy Lord Norio. He says that the Lord of Light is right, and if he were not here, they would become increasingly serious in the conflict with the mermaid race, which is also involved in their war. The Demon King addresses the Holy Koden Norio and considers that his existence is very important for this world, then proposes to drink to hope and for everything to go smoothly. St. Claude and Norio looks at the Demon King with surprise and excitement at the same time. They shook hands, and Norio confirmed the Demon King's words. After some time, the Demon King and a girl named Asterisk returned to Lord Saint, and he says that they punished those who were having fun while they were away. The Demon King says that they need to deal a little more with the merchants to gain sympathy throughout the country. Norio is happy with his actions. Norio enthusiastically says that they really planned everything well. He thought they were just enjoying their honeymoon. Vale asks the two girls standing behind why those two never travel with the Demon King. The girls are a little embarrassed by his concerned question and say that as long as they are here, the Demon King can return here whenever he wants. Vale instantly transforms into a dragon and says that Migum will take these girls to the demon country. Norio tries to calm Vale down. C invites the Demon King to come to him to replenish his food supplies. One of the girls calls herself Baelna and says that she will take care of fulfilling her role, namely to bind the king to this land. The Demon King and the Asterisk thank Baelna for her help. The king became interested in another girl named Batamy, and she says she will stay here because she is Baelna's friend. Baitma asks permission from the Demon King and says that she would like to stay here and continue sewing clothes. For Norio, this would be a great option. Then Batama, with a slightly embarrassed but at the same time thoughtful face, approaches Miss Astras. Astras does not understand anything. Suddenly she finds herself in a luxurious dress, but Emma says that she is the one who sewed it for the one and only Miss Astras, whom the Demon King fell in love with. The girl was a little saddened by the happiness. She thanked Batamy. The Demon King suggests that Asterisk move forward, and she immediately agrees. Behind the Demon King and Asterisk, a magical circle appears. Then they say goodbye to all their friends and promise to meet again. The whole company wishes them luck. After some time, a portal appears, into which the Demon King and Asterisk jump. The Demon King addresses Astras and says that he had long thought that he would never be able to peacefully end this war between demons and humans. Astruz is a little puzzled by the Demon King's words and says that the existence of Lord Saint made him realize that what he gave up was not just a dream. Astros approaches the Demon King. The Demon King asks her to lend him power for his dream. Astros agrees without hesitation. This conversation took place long before the Demon King returned to his country. Noria approached someone and asked him to compete with him. That man was the Demon King, who thought about this proposal for a long time. The Demon King really wants to gain that experience and find out how strong Saint Kitten is, but Noria is bad with the ball, so they need something simple. Suddenly an arena appears on the ground. Norio suggests playing sumo. The Demon King addresses Norio again, and Norio explains that sumo is a game where two stand opposite each other. He continues explaining the rules, saying that two people must be inside the circle, and the Demon King immediately understands this and says they will fight until someone can no longer move, but Noria contradicts his words. Noria approaches the Demon King closer and grabs him, saying that he should try to hold the opponent the same way. The Demon King cannot hit the opponent. He must try to pull him out of the circle. All kinds of strikes are forbidden. The king understood everything and said that it looked simple, to which Noria confirmed his words. The Demon King immediately took a fighting stance and offered Norio a fight. He agreed to only one match, and the king responded with consent. They stand on opposite sides of the circle and start the fight, sharply and without delay colliding. Norio tries to push the Demon King out of the circle, but he is still inside the circle. Suddenly Norio remembers that he knows many sumo techniques, so he tries one on the Demon King, who did not expect it and falls to the ground. The Demon King did not understand what had happened. Norio began to apologize and said that it was unexpected. The Demon King again asks the saint to leave this fight. The saint of the ruler agrees and at the same moment calls Okubo, while simultaneously a voice is heard asking for help. It was the Merman Prince. He addresses San Kitten and does not understand what is happening here. The Demon King also does not understand anything and is surprised by the appearance of the Merman Prince. The Mermaid Princess is confused because the Demon King is here. Norio asks her to calm down and offers him an idea. The Demon King and the Merman Prince fight in sumo. Norio acts as a judge in the arena. He tells both that they are still in the ring, and they continue to fight. Suddenly, an ogre named Okubo calls Norio. Norio asks the district to gather more people. Many beastmen begin to fight in the ring one after another. They are all still in the ring and cannot push each other out. All the guys in the company considered the fight fun and were satisfied, and later sumo became popular among them. Eventually, after long battles, Prince Arwana became the champion. Norio could not even imagine that mermaids stand so well on their feet. After some time, a voice sounded in Norio's house that the bread was ready. The girl bit into it with a crunch. It was a princess in a dress. She was delighted with the softness of this beautiful bread. Vale also goes crazy over this bread. The girls also admire the taste of the bread, saying that food in all worlds is the same, but the taste and texture are different. The princess asks the man what kind of food it is that he calls bread, and Norio confirms her words. He says that it is the staple food in his world, and that wheat flour can be used to prepare other dishes. Norio says that this is another addition to his repertoire, and Vale appears and asks Norio to hurry and make a few more for her. But before that, Lord Saint says he wants to prepare one more thing, namely a real food product from his world, the harvest of which he would like to grow next. This product is rice. All the girls stand in shock and do not understand which rice exactly is being talked about. Vale begins to ponder its taste. Lord Saint says that these are slightly sweet white grains, similar to wheat, but completely different. The princess is a bit shocked by the man's words. Norio says that rice is grown the same way as wheat. The flesh princess is shocked by the man's words, turns to him, and says that something needs to be changed. The princess says that now the organ team is responsible for construction projects, and all these orcs perform field work. The one who joined them after the demon race's escape is responsible for sowing. Belna monitors the roots, and if someone lacks hands, they help others, and their team also has a foolish dragon. Vale says that she protects this place from attacks, lays canals in the fields, and can even move buildings. The princess agrees and says that everyone is busy with their duties. The princess appears and is outraged that they spend so much effort preparing wheat, harvesting, milling, and grinding, because it is very hard work, and the girls agree with the princess's words. The princess began to shout and say that she is the only one who deals with medicine and food fermentation. Everyone else was shocked by what they heard from her and realized they were wrong. The princess begins to list what she does, prepares fertilizers for the fields, makes meat and soy sauce at the brewery, and also produces yeast and manages the cold storage. The princess stands up again and says that she cannot handle all these duties alone, and her husband falls to his knees and bows his head before her, asking for forgiveness. Tears well up in his eyes because he wanted to do a lot and did not take into account the amount of work. He considers himself a terrible man. The princess calms him down and says there is nothing wrong with that because he understood everything. The wolf says that all this is for the sake of good food and asks the princess to wait a little, to which the princess asks Vale to be quiet. Suddenly a voice interrupts the conversation between the princess and Vale. It was the merman prince named Shuren. Noria apologizes to him and says he is a terrible man. Shuren does not understand anything and asks the princess to explain. He says that after negotiations with the saint they agreed to sell pickled radish, so he came to buy it. The princess immediately got angry because it was her brother-in-law who ordered so many radishes. At that moment, the brother-in-law tries to calm his sister. The princess says that their neighbor, the immortal king, loves this radish. Then she asks you and the whole team why you like pickled food so much. To this, the brother-in-law replies that it is tasty and healthy. She says that the bread is also very tasty. The girls confirm her words. They say that there are so many kinds of fermented products. The girls add that although they are from the demon tribe, they are not strong in pharmaceutical magic. The princess begins to get very angry and says that her work has a terrible impact on people. At that moment, her husband simply starts crying and asks her for forgiveness. And suddenly the princess had an idea. The princess says that her brother-in-law came just in time. I had a wonderful thought that there are people who can relieve her of work and those who specialize in healing magic. The princess asks her brother to bring people from the mermaid kingdom here. The brother-in-law does not understand her words, so the princess says she will raise the price of pickled radishes. Then the procession turns to her dear husband, and he says that if it is possible, he supports it even more, after which the Holy Lord turns to his brother-in-law and he ponders. The princess asks her brother because she also wants to try rice from her beloved husband. Norio is a little embarrassed by his wife's words. Brother-in-law thought a little and said that sending sea dwellers would not be easy. Norio asked the brother-in-law again. Sharina addresses the Holy Lord and asks him if mermaids fear the shore. Norio initially thought they hated him, but suddenly the dress began to appreciate it. Sharini finds it hard to say anything definite, but he still decides. He says that Princess Pei is a real weirdo, and at that moment, the sister of the brother-in-law began to get angry and stand up. She does not understand why her brother-in-law said this so suddenly. The brother-in-law listens to her words and says that any ordinary mermaid considers the land a hellish place. The girls also understood everything because all mermaids are fish. The brother-in-law says that sea dwellers can usually live normally on land. In other words, platyfish, who voluntarily decided to live on land, is a rare specimen. The brother-in-law says that thanks to body medicine, he can freely move on land and water, and Princess Platy felt great from his words. However, until then everything was fiction, and there were restrictions on the appearance of side effects in terrestrial creatures, such as loss of voice, transformation into bubbles, and dissolution. Velu appears and says that all mermaids must stay in the water, but the brother-in-law said that this is impossible, and that goods are needed as a resource for the same diplomacy. The brother-in-law says that until strong medicines appear, most sea creatures will not voluntarily go ashore. Sharinge further says that along with medical improvements, a new system must be created to expel criminals, but the sea and others are surprised by the brother-in-law's words. Shorn adds that besides the harshest punishment, exile is applied, and if there is no antidote, they have only to live their whole life on land in the wild world. The Lord, the Saint, and everyone else are stunned by the brother-in-law's words. The brother-in-law says that for the sea dwellers, the shore will always be hell. It is easier to do something about this with the princess than with her brother, because he is the prince of the mermaids. The law rather requires that assistants have a high level in potion making, but even if they use a royal decree to work with people, they stay on the land for so long. The princess fully confirms the words of her brother-in-law and suggests he send exiled criminals here. Shorin and the rest of the company are stunned by her words. Shirks begins to shout and get upset because he cannot do this, as the Mermaid Kingdom owes a debt to the Holy Lord and cannot use its lands as a prison, while the Flower of Legends says there is nothing wrong with this. Norio does not want to put the council at risk. Shorn says that the Holy Lord, as always, fears nothing. Most likely, the criminals will be in danger. Suddenly, Vale transforms into a dragon and says that everything annoys her and that we burn everyone who comes here. Platy addresses her brother and says that if he still wants to eat pickled radish, he will have to bring 3 assistants. The Flesh Princess does not worry whether these assistants are criminals or not, but if they are talented, she is always glad to see them. The Flesh Princess says that by her actions, she will lead them to paradise. Her husband begins to apologize for cornering her. After some time, Sharon finally brought reinforcements. Before Norio stood 3 half-naked girls. Vale did not understand whether it was normal to have criminals under her command, and Norio said that it was completely abnormal. He clears his throat a little and apologizes for disturbing the Holy Lord, introduces all these girls again, and does not say that the one on the right is a spiny belly, the one in the center is an anglerfish, and the one on the right is Garafa. Norio does not understand why our brother-in-law brought the girls. He says they are criminals, so he asks Norio to watch over them. Lord Saint Norio thanks the girls for coming here. He introduces himself as Kedon. He is glad to meet them. Pufferfish remembers to print his words about this man. The fisherman doubts the abilities of this landowner and wonders why she has to work for him. Gara Rufa simply does not want to do anything. Suddenly their voices are interrupted. It was Princess Platy. She asks the girls to get ready. All the girls are surprised by her presence and shocked that she is here. The Ice Witch Rafa, the Fire Witch Ranpai, and the Epidemic Witch Gara Rufa looked at the company in surprise. Brother-in-law says that these girls from today are criminals and will work in a correctional colony under the supervision of his sister, Princess Platy. Rompi stammers and wants to say something. She happily jumps into the arms of Princess Lady, and Noriel's brother-in-law looks at all this puzzled. Rumpai immediately drops to one knee. She has not seen Princess Platy for a long time. Brother-in-law and Norio look at what is happening in surprise. Rampai cannot believe that he will serve the princess again. Tears well up in her eyes. She tries to hold them back because this is the height of happiness for her, but she cannot bear it and breaks down crying in front of her. The girl tells the company that this Ron Pai is a criminal. The brother-in-law confirms her words. This trio has a bad reputation in their country. Rafa smiles and says that Ron Pai is known only for his clinginess to the royal family. Then Rufa interrupts her and says that Rafa is also in love with Prince Aravana, which is why she came. Rafa begins to get upset, raises her voice, and tells Raffi that she is just showing life outside the sea and does not want to sit in a cage forever. Rafa thinks and sarcastically responds to her words. Noriel realizes that these girls do not get along at all. Rufa does not understand what they should do. Rampai swears to serve the princess. Pay until her body turns to dust. She will gladly destroy humanity with all her power. Pei does not understand who, and when asked her about this, Rafa asks them again. She is already ready to help in the destruction of humanity. Plotty says that their idea was cancelled so that they could take a moderate approach to their art. Norio asks Sharon what crimes the three of them committed, and Sharon, though a bit embarrassed, still tells the story. He says that in the mermaid country there were 6 wizards who brewed beastly potions, so they were called the 6 mad witches. Sharon brought only 3 of them here. Norio and the girl next to him asked Sharon again. He says that first he will tell the story of Rafa, who noticed the flow of mana at the bottom of the world's oceans, tried to create a way to artificially control this mana, and believes that there is nothing wrong with this. Sharon adds that if Rafa could control mana, she would use all water sources and destroy all humans and demons. Norio was frightened by Sharon's words. Sharon adds that Rafa is not only extremely radical, but also a master of her craft, so she had to be arrested and thrown behind bars. Norio understands everything that is happening. Then he asks about the girl with glasses. SH Vager says that this is Gara Rufa. She is also a dangerous criminal. Norio is a little shocked. Rufa initially had great authority as a specialist in the medical community of mermaids. Norio admires her a little and says that it is pleasant to engage in such things. According to the Brotherhood law, they say that Rufa once put forward a rather strange theory. Suddenly, Rufa herself interrupted him. She's a little disappointed and says that no one understands the charms of her experiments. Rufa enthusiastically talks about her theory that some diseases are caused by small invisible creatures. SH Vagro does not understand and will never understand such enthusiasm of Rufa. Norio guessed which invisible creatures she was talking about. That is, she meant microbes. Norio thought for a moment and remembered that Princess Platy was also very surprised when he told her about yeast and fermentation. Rufa begins to shout and asks to listen to her carefully. She says that the body, having remembered these small creatures, can then resist them. Norio notices and says that Rufa means the immune response. Rufa continues to talk about her crazy theory that if you take blood from someone who has already been ill and inject it into someone who has been more ill, then his body will be able to resist. Noria understood that Rufa means blood transfusion. Sharon slightly exaggerates, saying that if the blood of one person is introduced into another, it can lead to death. Rufa appears and does not understand the contradiction in Sharon's words. For Norio, Rufa's explanation is clear because he came from another world. Then Norio asks about the girl kneeling before the princess. Pay up. Brotherla says that this girl is also problematic. Sharon says that this girl initially served in the king's personal guard, and Norio appears and asks Sharon why she was imprisoned. Sharon says it is all because of his sister, more precisely because she is unmarried. When proposals of political marriage began coming from demons and humans, the opinions of the mermaids generally split. Sharon says that once an aristocrat from the neutral opposition mermaids spoke out against the very idea of marriage and addressed this directly to Sharon's father, the king of their country. The brother-in-law said that there was no need to take risks if the engagement suddenly broke off, because over time they would back down themselves, and it was a rather calm statement. The law says that the aristocrat then said what should not have been said, and quoted that the princess knows nothing except medicine. It does not matter whom she marries, she still will not cope with the role of a wife. Hearing these words, Ron Pai got angry, and with an angry face immediately beat that aristocrat on the spot, leaving no living place on him. At that moment, Ron Pai suddenly interrupts Shiring's story. His appearance frightens her, and she says that the incident is not her fault. According to her, the aristocrat who offended Platia is to blame for everything, and the brother-in-law tells Norio that Ron Pai does not admit guilt, so she was imprisoned to calm her down. Shirin apologizes for bringing these strange girls, to which Plotty says that now nothing can be done about his action. Norio returns to Plety and asks if she will be okay. She is shy, happy, and glad that Norio cares about her, and her brother-in-law with a calm expression says that she will be okay. Plady angrily accuses Shirin, saying that he should not have been responsible for her. Shirin wants to tell Mr. Norio one thing, that she is actually a princess. Plady is one of the 6 mad witches. Norio begins to worry about her, but she does not remember her crimes, and her brother-in-law says that Plady is the worst of the witches. She caused an emergency situation with the help of forbidden drugs, and no one can contradict her because of her attitude towards the royal family. Because of this, Plady was nicknamed the Witch with the Crown. Norio realized that his wife turned out to be a witch. This thought did not give him peace. Brother-in-law leaves all matters to Plady and says that only she can calm one of the 6. She asks to be trusted. Plotty was very happy about this event because now she would have much less work. Brother-in-law, Norio, and the girl looked at her excitement with surprise and embarrassment. Ranpai says with admiration that now he will serve the princess again. She says that this place is literally paradise on earth. Rafa pondered Ranpai's words and asked what kind of place it was. Nario says that the owner of this place is a guy named Kitten, and Rafa and Rufa think it belongs to people, although they saw a girl with a piece of cloth who looked like a demon. Then a goblin and an ogre approach Norio and say that the pizza oven is built. Norio thanks Okubo and Gabunshin for the work done. The witches came and were shocked by what was happening. They could not believe that an ogre and a goblin were talking to Mr. Norio and mistakenly thought they had ended up in the land of demons. At that moment, Vale interrupts them and says that for girls like them, their thoughts mean nothing, and their job is to quietly help the mermaid prepare even tastier food. The girls look at Vale and do not understand why such a small girl protects them so much. Vale did not like what she was told. She begins to emit light that fills the entire space. The girls do not understand what is happening. Vale transforms into a dragon and says that she is head and shoulders above these girls. The witch team is frightened by such a massive transformation of Vale. They do not understand why the dragon from 2 world catastrophes ended up right here, and Garufa suddenly loses consciousness from shock. Norio tells Vale that she will not get food if she does not stay quiet, and Vale immediately calms down. Then Norio announces that today they will have a pizza party to celebrate the arrival of the 3 witches. Vale does not know about pizza, so Norio explains that she will understand when she tries it. Rafa does not understand who this guy is. Plotty says that this man is her husband. Rampai and Rafa, hearing this, froze in amazement. They are very surprised and shocked. Then Rampai loses consciousness and falls to the ground. Suddenly, Rafa heard a voice, turned around and saw a living skeleton in a mantle and hat, who thanked everyone for the invitation to the newcomers' party. Rafa says in a trembling voice that this is the immortal king, and she is very shocked that 2 world catastrophes have gathered in one place. Then Rafa also loses consciousness and falls to the ground. Platty says that until these girls wake up, the party will not start. After some time, she opens her eyes. She is lying on a cozy bed. Suddenly, she jumps off the bed. Her friends are already waiting. The room is silent. The building is decorated in a nice wooden style. Ranpai does not understand where she is. Rafa says that they are in a strangely built house, where it smells pleasant and the bed is very soft. Rampai begins to remember that Prince Saravana led them upstairs to make them work in penal labor, and suddenly one of the maids, Belina, enters their room. The girls look at this girl in shock. They understand that she is from the demon clan. Belina says that Saint Coden made a deal with them and asks them to go to a certain place. The girls do not understand what holy exile is being talked about. Suddenly Rampai remembered who they were talking about. After some time, she calls Princess Platty. The princess looks back at Rampai's call, who is running quickly towards her. She falls to her knees before the princess and begins to call her poor and miserable, because the princess was forced to become the wife of a demon on this hellish land. The princess does not understand which cursed land is being referred to. She says that this man is her husband. The mermaid asks the princess again. Ranpai says that she will never forgive Kadhin and will send him to the other world. The rest of the mermaids followed Ranpai and asked the princess why the man controls the land that belongs to demons, and Belena replied that this is not the land of demons. However, it will be difficult for all of them to explain what kind of place this is. The princess confirms her words. Rufa asks the princess about this place, to which the princess says that it is a completely independent territory. She says that this is the village of Saint Codon. The girls do not understand her words and say that it cannot be so, especially because the word village sounds somewhat crude, and they fear that a war between humans and demons might start here. The one who said that this war could be quickly calmed was frightened by the unexpected appearance. Ranpai remembers this girl. The girl introduced herself as the dragon Grinzel Vale. Then Ramp recalls that she seemed to have seen the immortal king, and suddenly, the immortal king himself appears next to this girl. The mermaids are frightened by the unexpected appearance of the immortal king and do not believe it, because through him, they might end up in another world. Belina says that she was also surprised at first, and confirms that in fact these two guard this place, namely the immortal king and the dragon Vales. Ranpai barely believes it, but understands that this land is no worse than any other in the world. The princess asks the mermaids to live here without fear. Vale adds that they must not only live, but also work. Vale says that today these miserable fishtails will work with the mermaid to feed her, and the princess says that it is not only for her sake. Rafa guesses that they were brought here as cooks. Ranpai rolled back in tears, returned to the princess, and said that she was deeply humiliated. The princess asks to repeat these words. Then the princess says that before dinner she will take them to the place where they will work, asks Genbin to inform her husband about it, and Genbin agrees, saying she will definitely pass it on. Rafa does not believe that they will really work on cooking. Rufa wanted to conduct research. Ron Pai wants to come up with a plan to escape from here with the princess. In a few minutes they arrive at the place. The princess opens the door and tells the girls that this is their workplace. The mermaids are stunned by what they see. They smelled a very strange scent, but surprisingly, it was not disgusting, and the princess says that here she makes spices and other ingredients for food. The mermaid noticed some liquid, and the princess said it was dark soy sauce. Pouring a little sauce into a cup, she asked the mermaids to try it. The girls are surprised by the origin of this soy sauce. The princess says that this sauce is somewhat like medicine that is added to food for flavor. The girls slowly take turns dipping their fingers into the soy sauce, bringing them to their lips, tasting the sauce, and immediately showing it to shock. The girls are very pleased with the taste of the soy sauce because it has well-selected ingredients and several flavor notes, which the princess confirms. Rampai says that the princess created an amazing preparation. The princess, embarrassed, says that she did not invent it. The princess says that her husband told her that some ingredients contain tiny organisms and microbes that create this product. Rufa immediately became interested in the princess's words. She says she does not understand the meaning of my words, but you already feel that this is something incredible. The princess says that they were just conducting similar research, and Rufa confirms her words. Rufa, holding a bowl of soy sauce in her hands, thinks about the fact that those tiny creatures she imagined live in it. The princess fully confirms her words. Rufa cried with joy. After all her research assumptions turned out to be correct. She is sincerely glad that this sauce was formed as a result of the fermentation of microorganisms. Out of joy, Rufa tries to drink all the soy sauce at once, and the princess tries to stop her, saying that she will end up in another world if she drinks it all at once. She tells how she first tasted soy sauce, but her husband stopped her. Rafa was a little offended that someone else was already using her research, but at the same time, she is happy and wants to learn more about these microorganisms, and the princess relies on Rufa. Other girls are worried about this man, whom they consider a saint. Apparently, he is not as simple as he seems. The princess says that her husband is called a hero, and the mermaids are surprised by her words. Rampai says that Rafa pays attention to nothing except her research. Then she explains that the summoned heroes are people from another world who were called to fight demons and save people. Rafa is very surprised by the words of Rampai, who says that others in their world may also have their own affairs, to which he adds that human meanness is no longer news. The princess says that she heard that the king of humans forcibly summoned her husband to his world and expelled him because he was not fit for battle, so her husband began to live using knowledge and skills from his old world. Suddenly their conversation was interrupted by a voice. It was a dragon veil. She was very hungry, so she decided that you and Mister are all angry at these girls. After some time, the pizza was ready. On 4 trays lay 4 different pizzas. The mermaids were surprised by dishes from another world. The Holy Lord says that now he will divide the pizza into pieces. After he cut the pizza into pieces, he handed out plates with slices to everyone. First, he gave a plate to Dragon Veil. She was incredibly happy. Rampai says that the princess's husband, Lord Sankadin, is very clever, and all his company and the princess's close friends sit at the table covered with dishes, and everyone wishes each other a good meal. The mermaids took pieces of pizza and began tasting them one by one. They were stunned by the taste because they had never tried such food before. Ron Paul says that this food is extremely delicious. They cannot believe that it is really from another world and so tasty. Rufa says that the wealth of flavors lifted her soul to the sky. Lord Esvaidi is very glad that the girls liked the food. Ranpai just silently watches. Then Lord Esvaidi serves the teacher and brother-in-law their favorite dishes. They both admire such a large amount of food. Suddenly, the princess remembers her older brother and tells him that she will soon prepare a lot of pickled radish, asks him not to be shy and to buy some, and the brother-in-law replies that this is good news and he will visit again next week. Rafa is shocked that Prince Iruvana will come next week. She does not believe that this person, who is rarely seen even by merfolks, will come in a week. Rufa is very pleased with what is happening. She returns to Rafa and says she said nothing. Norio asks his wife if there is more, and the girl replies that there is. The princess is very pleased that her husband's dish is once again exquisite today. The saint asks his beloved about tomatoes because she loves them very much. Then they laugh together and enjoy each other's company. Ranpai mentally addresses the princess and does not understand what fascinates her so much about this man, but she looks very happy. After some time, night falls and the mermaids go to their room. They lie in a nice, cozy, and very comfortable bed. Rafa says the food was really tasty. Rufus says that it is all thanks to the small creatures. Rampai says that a man named Kitten turned out to be very hardworking. The girls begin to discuss the previous day because Bottomy made them a bed that was smooth and pleasant to the touch. The material is called silk. It is a very expensive fabric made from rare threads, and this house and this futon are very cozy. The girls continue to think about what could have been, and most likely it was not hell, but rather paradise on earth. Outside the walls of the building, a deep moonless night prevailed. After some time, Rafa finished her work. Suddenly, Rufa came and interrupted her. She asks for help with her work. When Rafa finishes hers, Rufa extends a curved object. She asks to soak this dried radish in wheat miso. Rafa asks her again. He laughs a little and says that it has mold in it and considers it disgusting. However, this is how radish is pickled. Rafa thinks that the prince will taste the dish prepared by her. Rufa likes Rafa's thoughts, to which she says that she has never said anything like that. Rafa asks about the disappearance of Ranpai, and Rufa says that she went hunting with orcs because she likes physical exercise. After some time, Ranpai walks along the path with two orcs. Ranpai noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Suddenly, a boar jumped at the team. She decisively prepared to strike. The boar was getting closer and closer, and with one quick sharp blow, she cut it in half. The orcs rejoice. Rampai says that for her, as a royal knight, this is just a trifle. Soon the night falls. In his room, Lord Saint discusses these three mermaids. The princess says that they really help her. She says that they not only helped her husband, but also got along well with the juices and goblins, so they were able to finish the radish field faster. The man says that now they have seedlings that just need to be planted, and when they sprout, they will be able to get rice from his world. Saint Lord says that cooking rice has special meaning for him. The princess addresses the man but does not get a clear answer from him. She sinks into thoughts and begins to rejoice. She says that they just need to cook this rice as soon as possible, and her husband agrees. After some time, the rice planting field was ready. There were rice seedlings and special boxes there. The mermaids did not know what to do with them. They heard that today they would be planting the seedlings. Rafa asks about rice planting, saying that it should be planted directly in the water. The princess fully confirms this. Rafa begs for mercy because she will dirty the clothes that Baitme made for her. Baitme thanks her and says that these clothes are for working in the field. Rufa says that after the exile of the saint, this rice is one of the fermentation components needed to make sake. She is confident that the drink will be very tasty. She believes that Prince Irohana will also be very pleased. Rafa says that this is exactly why they are here, and she is waiting for this rice, and Rufa is very happy because she will be able to work together with the product of defeat. Ranpai addresses the princess and says that he will not allow her to get dirty, so he asks to entrust all the work to him, because for her sake he is ready to go through water and fire. Vale will also have to work, although she does not want to, and the princess asks the man to show them how to properly plant rice. He tells them to take 3 or 4 seedlings and hold them between the thumb and index finger. Then he tells them to plant these seedlings in the water like this. Everyone else agrees with his actions. The princess announces a rice planting competition for all the peasants. They take turns entering the water. Rufa is a little nervous because the cold water gives her goosebumps. Ranpai is surprised because Rafa is very attentive in doing her work. The maidservants help the rest of the team by bringing new seedlings. All the peasants gradually plant them in the water. The mermaids and the inhabitants of Dragon Valley also participate in planting rice. Ranpai is delighted with something. The mermaids complain because the work turned out to be more difficult than they thought, and Rufus's legs cannot stand it, and Ranpai has back pain. The maids are also outraged that this work is harder than working in the field. One of them can no longer endure and falls face first into the water. Finally, she wants to sew a couple more dresses. Asviati runs up to Baitme to help and asks how she feels. Vale watches what is happening and says they are weaklings anyway. The princess asks her if she is tired. Vale says that she is a dragon and remains just as strong even in human form, and when she notices that the princess is also not tired, she replies that unlike others, she has strong legs and is already used to this work. Everyone suggests to the princess to arrange a competition to see who does it faster, and the princess smiles and says she will not let the girl who only sleeps and eats lose. Both girls are determined and ready to win. The rice planting competition begins. One of the girls immediately moves and quickly starts planting rice. Lord St. Kitten does not understand what is happening. The mermaids are simply surprised by what they see. These two quickly dealt with one strip. They have a perfect trot arrangement. And they marvel at the skill and say that this is the highest level. Currently, the princess is first on the playground. Not far from her is a dragon. The princess suddenly ran out of seedlings, and she asks someone to bring more. Runpai immediately takes the seedlings in his hands and hurriedly carries them to deliver on time. Suddenly Vila pushed Runpai and she lost her balance. The other mermaids were surprised by what happened. Runpai was quite far from the princess. The princess is shocked that their field is slightly damaged. Rampai says she is fine. Rampai is also surprised that even in human form, Vale has dragon power. Rampai says that she underestimated the work in the field, addresses Princess Platy, and says that the strength of her human legs is simply incredible. Rampai says that hard work is the foundation of training. The princess says that this may be true, but she does it not only for training. Vale appears and says that it is all for the sake of delicious food. Vale and the princess dream of the taste of rice. Rampai understands that it is all for the sake of food. The princess motivates everyone by not telling them that today they need to fully cultivate the entire field. Thanks to everyone working, they managed to do everything in one day, and thanks to the princess's magical means, the seedlings grew in a month. And finally, after some time, the rice was ready. All the close and dear friends of the Holy Lord looked in amazement at the steamed rice. The saint says that rice can be eaten at any time of day or night. Vale begs her master to allow her to quickly taste the rice. The princess appears and says that the prisoner must try it first. The maids say that the princess tried with all her heart to speed up the growth of the rice. The saint asks them again, and they confirm his words. They say that the princess not only fertilized the rice to help it grow better, but also sat near the field itself and asked people to help with the preparation to ensure a good harvest. Lena laughs a little. The princess asks Lena to stop the story. Kitten is a little embarrassed and surprised by his wife's actions. The princess asks her husband to finally taste the rice. Kitten agrees with his wife and adds rice to a full cup. Holding the cup in his hands, he gradually takes a little rice to try. The girls behind him look at him expectantly. The saint takes a small piece of rice and slowly brings it to his mouth. The princess impatiently awaits her husband's opinion. The saint says it is incredibly delicious and cries a little from pleasure. The princess looks at her husband a little stunned. Vale appears, addresses the saint, says it is so tasty that tears come to her eyes, and asks to let her try it quickly. Saint asks Vale to wait until he prepares the side dish, and then she will be able to enjoy the full bouquet of flavors. Ranpei says that the princess tried very hard to see the smile of this man. She is also glad that she did everything possible. Rafa also perfectly understands her friend. To which Rafa replied that she had said nothing of the sort. When the princess asks the man why this rice is so important to him, perhaps because it is the national dish of his world. The man confirms her words, but there is one remark. He also wanted to thank everyone who helped him and addresses his wife, thanking her for her help. Norio addresses Hephaestus and asks about her health, because thanks to her he lives here and enjoys life. He apologizes for being late and hands her onigiri with gratitude. He asks her not to be shy and to taste the fruits of their joint labor. The princess addresses the man and says that such food can be very dangerous. At first, due to the lack of taste, she did not understand what was good about this food, but rice becomes extremely tasty together with other dishes. The girls agree with the princess's words and say that they also do not want to return to a place where there is no such food. Vale asks her master to give her more food. The saint thinks that the girls really like the rice. Rafa says that rice is a very scary thing. Vanity says that now that they have rice, he wants to cook other dishes. Claudie and Val are shocked by these words. They do not understand that there will be more dishes. They did not know that rice can be complemented with other dishes. Suddenly Vale jumps up and says that she will return to her dungeon and increase the difficulty. Saint is a little shocked by her words. The princess says that it is a good idea. Kitten does not understand what this has to do with rice, and the princess says that increasing the dungeon level means that different monsters may appear that were not there before. Vale fully confirms the princess's words and says that this will improve the taste not only of rice, but also of other dishes. Kitten did not know that such a thing could be done in a dungeon. Rafa says that in this world, only special creatures of the highest rank, such as dragons, can change dungeons. The dungeon has its own rules. Because it is filled with mana, the space inside it is distorted. The princess says that only one of 2 global catastrophes can change the dungeon. Vale confirms her words. Kitten is cautious about her words. Rafa did not think that such wonders would gather together and considers this place incredible. Rufa remembers that Rafa studied the mana flow and its influence on others, and Rampai encourages her not to give up. The princess suggests focusing on preparing ingredients for the dish. Ranpai wants to test her strength in the updated dungeon of Lady Vale. The dragon says that someone as weak as her cannot challenge the dungeon. Everyone became very interested, and this time she will make several levels to see how Ron handles it, and it seems that this will cause some problems in the process. After a few days, Dragon Valley is ready to show its updated dungeon. She asks the team to attack together. Sint is annoyed by the voice of the valley from the top of the mountain. The princess says that they will only study new creatures, but feels that final bosses await them, and the team has gathered to explore Vale's dungeon. Ron Pai believes that the saint went with them. The king of humans called him from another world, but then expelled him due to powerlessness. She doubts whether the saint can handle this difficult dungeon, which has many levels. In any case, she will protect the princess with all her strength. Suddenly, the team notices movement ahead. They are attacked by a pack of wild boars. Ron Pai asks to give them to her. Suddenly, the girl froze. The immortal king appeared before her, waved his hand, and in a second the entire herd was destroyed. The immortal king says that he liked this adventure, so he decided to go with them. At that moment, Vale addresses him. She asks him not to change her dungeon at his discretion and forbids it. Later, the dragon's claws grab the immortal king by the collar. Vale says that the immortal king is disqualified for cheating. The team thanks the immortal king because he saved them. It would have been difficult for them if they had to fight such a number of monsters. Ron Pai says that friendship with two world disasters greatly undermines her pride as a royal knight, after which the team sighs with relief. After that, she retracts her words and says that she exists to protect the princess. The husband and wife think about changing the dungeon, but so far they have only encountered familiar monsters. Vale says not to worry and that they are already in the old zone. She adds that if the old monsters disappear, it will create problems. Ahead awaits a new zone. After some time, they came out onto a clearing. The princess asks her beloved husband to be careful. They realize that someone is nearby. Rampy says that she feels strong monsters nearby. Suddenly, something appears behind Rampy. They do not understand what is happening, and something jumps out of the tall grass and attacks them. These were spinning discs. Ketan thinks that these discs look like UFOs. These flying UFOs fly towards them. Due to rapid spinning, they are sharp as blades and cut the tops of trees. The team managed to dodge. Kitten says that these are UFOs, then clarifies that it is an unidentified flying object. Rampy says that she will handle it herself. The princess says that she should not be underestimated because she has the power of a crowned witch. Ron Pai says that he will do everything possible to help her. Kidan was a little scared but still wanted to help them. He took a sword in his hands and took a fighting stance, and Ron Pai, noticing this, said that the sword should be held from the other side. Ron Pai takes the bag in her hands and says that first they need to stop the breakthrough. She unfastens the clasp with her teeth and throws the bag into the air. This bag gradually begins to glow next to the flying objects, after which an explosion of incredible force occurs. The princess remembers that Ron Pai uses a potion that can explode. The saint understood why she is called the Witch of the Infernal Flame. The girl is proud that she was able to defeat them, but suddenly falls silent. She sees that these flying objects are not damaged, and Vale boasts about their power. Vale says that these are turtle-like monsters, and their shell is the strongest among monsters. Rampy approaches closer and says that these turtles can simply be flipped over, and they will become helpless. Suddenly something flew out of the turtle's head and wrapped around the girl's arm. These were some ropes that gradually began to wrap around the whole girl. The princess does not understand who these turtles with tentacles are. Gabukichai tries to free the girl, but he fails. The orc swings and tries to hit directly at the turtle's body. He strikes the turtle's shell, but the shell is so hard that his axe simply breaks, and Ron Pai is also surprised by this action. The turtles sequentially pull many tentacles out of their heads, which gradually move towards the team. The princess asks the man to deal with this, and he immediately agrees. The turtle's tentacles gradually wrapped around the girl's neck. The saint swings and delivers a devastating blow to these tentacles. The tentacles scattered in different directions. The saint himself is shocked by his actions. After this, the Holy Lord asks about Ranpai's health. She replies that everything is fine. Smoke is coming from the turtle's head. The princess takes one turtle in her hands and notices that their tentacles were a weak spot. They are surprised that the team defeated these turtles. These monsters, which she created, are among the weakest. Stronger opponents await the team ahead. Anna asks the team to move to the next level. The orc says that these shells can be used as armor and shields for other goblins and orcs. Sint confirms his words. Vale asks the team not to make her wait. The princess appears and says that they just came to study new monsters. Ron Pai says that stronger monsters await them ahead. The princess says that everything is fine. She says that her husband is stronger than any evil in the world, and that he is the strongest in this world, and Ron Pai is confused. She doubts the princess's words. She does not believe that the princess's husband is the strongest in the world. She does not want to lose hope and will find a new goal that suits her. The team decides to rest a little. The team made a stop at a place in the forest. Pai is surprised and says that she never expected the Holy Lord to be stronger than the immortal king and the dragon. She still does not understand one thing, why the human kingdom expelled the Holy Lord, although he had incredible power. The Holy Lord says that he actually has no combat skills, just once God gave him a gift that allows him to fully unlock the potential of everything he touches. Moreover, this Lord has a sacred orb. Pai is very surprised by the Holy One's words. Kitten says that is why he is not so special. Pai says that the Holy One's power is very useful. Princess Platy married such a handsome man. Even if demons or humans decide to attack the princess, the entire mermaid kingdom will be safe. The sun shone brightly in the sky and blinded the eyes, and the princess says that the surrounding landscape has hardly changed, but on the contrary, it has become even hotter. Suddenly, the dragon's voice interrupts all the princess's thoughts. Vale says that the next scene is called Burning Hell, and monsters that are best suited to such conditions will attack them. A pack of wolves with manes like fire appeared before the team. The team immediately became alert and all took battle positions. Vale says that this is the most dangerous of the local four-legged monsters, hyena lichens, which are strong, agile, and fierce, and moreover become stronger when it is hot. Vale says that their strength lies in endurance and victory, so escape is impossible. She turns to Lord Sane and asks how to resist these wolves, and at that moment, the wolves attack Lord Sane. The princess and Pai also became interested in this question. Suddenly, their faces changed, and they were very surprised. All the wolves rolled on the ground like obedient dogs. They did not understand what was happening here, but suddenly, the voice of the immortal king said that the hyena lichens felt the power of the Holy Lord, and these wolves looked at the Holy Lord gently, not even trying to attack him. Lord Saint begins to pet these shelves as if they were his pets. He is a little upset, but at the same time happy. After some time, the team was still passing through the burning hell. All the time the wolves calmly followed them and did not even try to stop them. The voice of the immortal king says that wolf-like monsters create a strict hierarchy to form a pack, so the wolves recognize the Holy Lord as their leader. The wolves just look at Lord Saint sweetly. Lord Saint is embarrassed and looks at them happily. He says he never thought they would love him so much without his gift. Pite notices and understands that this is a high-level dungeon. The princess says that this could cause problems. Vale asks her to praise him and adds that even scarier monsters await them ahead. Taking the wolves with them, the team continues to explore the Vale dungeon. They enter a place completely covered with snow, and the princess does not understand why it is so cold here. Vale says this is the last point of her dungeon ice hell. The princess wants to return home. Suddenly, Lord Holy turns around. The whole team also looks back and sees a monster behind them. It was a huge bear. It stood on all fours and looked threateningly at the team. The presence of the bear frightened the Holy Lord. The girls say that this is exactly the huge power they felt when they first entered here. This monster is a head taller than those they met before. The princess asks her husband to leave here, and the disheveled man says that this monster is strong and he wants to avoid senseless destruction. The Lord understands that even he cannot escape from him, so he turns to his teacher. The voice of the immortal king says that this bear also realizes the full power of the Holy Lord. He is a warrior who only knows how to fight. The voice of the immortal king says that the bear's fate is to challenge the strong one. Then the bear growls and begins to attack. The bear fiercely lunges at the Holy Lord, and suddenly wolves appear from behind him, who in response attack the bear and surround him from different sides, because they are confident that this shows loyalty to their master. The Holy One says he cannot help them like this and asks Rampai to handle it. She runs, draws a rapier, and will not let the bear attack the team. With a sharp and quick movement, she cuts the bear's legs. He growls fiercely in pain, cannot stand up, and falls to the ground. Pai says that the tendon in the paw is damaged and he will not be able to move. The Holy One thanks Lady Pai. The team wants to go home. Their friend is interrupted by the voice of Vale. She asks them not to move and says she will not allow it to end like this. The bear lies unconscious. Holly asks the girls and the rest of the team to stop. He turns to his wife and asks about the ointment he asked to bring. Platy and Rampier are a little surprised. The Holy One is going to apply this ointment to the bear. Rampai says that if left alone, the bear will simply disappear, and if the enemies test his mercy, he will become very angry. The voice of the immortal king wants to turn the bear into mana. Vale asks the immortal king not to do as he pleases. The Holy One turns to the teacher. Cadden doubts his thoughts. He wants to save this bear because he is sure that it did not come here to attack them. Most likely, the bear had some purpose. The princess has no other choice but to give the ointment to the Holy Lord. Kitten apologizes to Rampai because she tries very hard to protect them. Rampai says that Lord Saint is too soft and does not believe he can protect the country and the princess. Lord Saint is preparing to act. Keaton asks Mr. Bear to take a little better care of himself, because then he will be able to live longer. The bear does not respond to the words of the Holy Lord. All these actions angered the Dragoness Vale. She does not understand why the team broke her rules. She says she has nothing left but to resort to the last means. After this, Velchamar appears on the field and says she will be their opponent. Rampai is shocked that the final boss is a dragon, and Vale is insanely pleased with the team's reaction. She asked the team not to worry, because it was just a clown with 1/100th of her power, but even that would be enough to destroy several cities. She orders the team to attack. Lord Saint notices something out of the corner of his eye. It was a bear that suddenly struck the dragon on the head. The girls stand in a stupor. From such a blow, the dragon begins to gradually disappear and eventually completely evaporates. Canyon is shocked that the bear destroyed the Vale clone. Kitten and the bear looked at each other. Sviato does not understand why the bear acted that way. After that, the bear sharply turned and gradually disappeared beyond the horizon until it was completely out of sight. Orcs of Doblin say that I, as a monster, do not understand the feelings of this bear. They say the bear is proud. This fight is now his way to repay the kindness of their master. Kubo says that the bear went its own way to become a powerful monster recognized by their master. Saint says that in that case, he and the bear will meet again. Until now, she fought to protect those she wanted. Her actions did not make the world better. The willingness to extend a helping hand to a friend or even an enemy is true strength. After some time in the village of St. Lord Kidden, the Dragon Vale stood, frowning contentedly, and Rufa says that her new dungeon did not impress anyone. When the Holy Lord addressed the Dragoness, he gave her a new dish and said that it was a dish from their new menu called Katsudon. The saint says that when they were descending from the mountain, they finally found a monster bird that laid eggs, and after that the saint was finally able to prepare the dish he had wanted for so long, all thanks to the restored Vale dungeon. The saint says that now he can improve his culinary skills. Then he thanks Vale. Vale is touched, her face and eyes begin to shine with joy, and she is a little shy. Esviatoa asks the whole company to sit at the table, because the food is already served. After some time, a strange exclamation is heard, and the whole company marvels at the new, unusual taste. The saint says that during the dungeon exploration, the team was able to obtain his long-awaited eggs. Going outside, the saint says that their settlements are becoming livelier. The holy tradition is interested in the future. He does not know what will happen to their settlement, and then in another place, in the forest, some events take place. Two people in hoods talk about something. They do not understand what is happening here and do not believe that there is a village here. The whole team was sitting on tree branches. One of them says that she must see everything with her own eyes because she is the head of this band of thieves, Aileron. The first wolf was named Pachai, the second Pez, the third Khan, and the fourth Taro. The Holy Lord throws some kind of bandage and tells the wolves to bring it. The Holy Lord says that these were wolf monsters he met in the Vale dungeon and that they came to live with him. He pets one of the wolves and is impressed by its beauty. Lord Saint says that Pocha and others destroy pests and drive away wandering monsters from the dungeon, but there is one small problem. The wolves are fighting again over the mouse they caught. Esviatoa thinks that the wolves lack food. Suddenly he gets an idea. Later he prepares meat. Vale approaches him and asks what he is doing. Saint says he wants to prepare food for the dogs. This food is intended for his wolves. Vale is unhappy that the wolves also eat their food. Vale says there is nothing funny here and exhales flames from her mouth. She says she will deal with those wolves herself. Saint says there is no need because those wolves already belong to their family. Vale is still unhappy. Saint draws his sword. It's time to grind the ingredients. Saint admires his amazing bullet because it can cut food into microscopic particles, and Vale is a little upset that Saint is treated improperly, using her unholy great sword. She cannot forgive Lord Saint. Because of her dissatisfaction, she is going to eat that dog thing. In a small barrel, dog food was prepared. Lord Saint says he took care of his dog's health, removed excess fat, and added some vegetables for nutritional balance. Lord Saint was still worried whether the dogs would like the food, but his fears were unfounded. The dogs really liked it, and suddenly his attention was distracted by a voice. Vale transformed into a dragon and also asked to be given some of this food. Svarti's Vedu could do nothing about it and asked Vale to return to her usual form and extend her hands. He pours some dog food for her. Vale looks at her palms full of food with happy eyes. She immediately pounces on the treat. She carefully chooses the dog food, says it may be nutritious, but tastes more like animal food, and suddenly her facial expression changes. She smiled slightly and addressed one of the dogs. Even the dogs were afraid of her gaze. "All right, I will tell the dogs to eat as much as they want." Since then, Vale no longer ate dog food. The food was tasteless. Some voices are curious about this settlement. They do not understand exactly which fruits, berries, and vegetables grow on these bushes. Some voices note that this was not even present in the estates of wealthy people and demons. They notice that someone is tending these fields. One of the gang takes a fruit and tries it, then asks the boss to taste it, and he feels as if his cheeks have gone numb. These fruits are incredibly delicious. The female leader is also going to try them. Suddenly something occurs to her. She does not understand what aroma is hidden behind this wonderful fruit. It is too tasty for her. One of the master's maids says that the territory is being watched. She noticed several more houses with unusual architecture and gardens. This village looks more like a farm, and this is confirmed by the mysterious harvest. The group thinks that aristocrats live in this place, and if so, they are not surprised that these fields are located in the middle of nowhere. The guy from the group does not know what to do with this, to which the boss replies that most likely there is a treasure hidden in this area. If they miss this golden opportunity, it will ruin their reputation as successful thieves. The boss calls himself Grim Freezer, and they will clean out this estate and take all the valuables. Suddenly, the chief notices something. One of Lord Saint's dogs is watching them from the bushes. Meanwhile, inside the building, a maid is creating magical circles in the sky. She was actually checking the checkpoints. Something is wrong with them. Belena says that her job is to maintain the checkpoints for His Majesty, the Demon King, and the Demon Queen Misastros. She considers this work useless because she sang only one song. Because of this, she helped everyone and everything. She used to work for the Demon King before moving here. Now part of the work is done by 3 mermaids who work where there is a shortage of labor. Because of this, her workload has significantly decreased. Lately, the servants have too much free time. Clenching her hand into a fist, she says that this is very bad. After thinking, she adds that if this continues, she will lose everything and be left without a job. She decides to do something about it and asks Lord Saint to give her a job. She searches for him throughout the mansion and finally finds him. At that time, Lord Saint was engaged in pottery. A servant interrupts him and does not understand what the Holy Lord is doing. The Holy Lord says that he is molding a pot, that is, making a bowl out of clay. He said that since their dishes are made of mana metal, it is time to buy real clay dishes, and the servants finally realized that they were eating from dishes made of precious metals. The Holy Lord says that molding by hand takes a lot of time, so he decides that the pot needs to be redone, so he returns it, and suddenly the servant understands something. Balina wants to help the Lord of Light. He highly values her enthusiasm, but warns that this is very labor-intensive work, and the servant says that the Holy Lord can still use her help. Belina says that she actually also has psychokinesis. Then, if she fills the little stone with magic, it will start to move. At least this is the only magic she can do with one little stone. She places the little stone on the spinning wheel and secures it with clay. She utters a prayer. Spreading her arms, the machine spinning forward begins to turn. The Holy Lord is pleased with Belina's work. The machine starts spinning again, then more and more strongly, and the clay that was on this machine flies into the Holy Lord's face. Lord of the Color asks Henbane to slow down a bit, to which she apologizes. Lord Saint notes that Henbane works a lot, to which she replies that this is not so. She says that she tries very hard, but as a result, she is not as good as his girl or others, and she constantly needs help because she does not want to be left without a job. Lord Flower says that there is no need to worry and thanks her for helping with the pot. Henbane says that the pot has now turned into a pancake and she could do nothing more. Lord Saint asks Henbane to solve everything together. She is glad about his words. After some time, they got a crumpled cup. Belina wants to break it, but Lord Saint stops her. Anna says that the first pancake is always lumpy and asks her not to be upset. He is sure that something can still be done about it, to which Henbane says that he should not support her so fervently. A friend distracts them with his voice. The wolves barked loudly, so they ran towards their cries. It was a group of thieves who were caught and tied up. Lars asks Okubo to explain. He says that a group of elven bandits was caught on their farm. The elves looked like demons, but throughout history, they evolved separately. Lord Saint thought they were allies of his servants, but she says that elves do not interact with either humans or demons. The servants heard that numerous Elysian gangs rob left and right, and because of this have a bad reputation among humans and demons. Most likely they have a hideout that no one can break into. That is why they are hard to catch. A saint appears and says that most likely they live in the mountains. These places are quite remote from the world. He addresses the group of thieves and says that they were probably surprised when they found their farm. The boss asks the saint who they are, and the saint replies that his name is Saint Kidden, and this is the place where he settled. Some of yours whisper and say that this Kidden is a human. They do not understand why he is accompanied by a demon. They also do not understand that all other inhabitants of this village are monsters. Lord, you understand that these thieves are still confused. He turns to the orc and asks what they did. The orc says that they stole tomatoes from their farm. The voice of another girl interrupts the story about the orcs. The princess and the dragon approach the noise. They are angry because their tomatoes were eaten. Vale immediately transforms into a dragon and says that they must be destroyed. Sveta understands that Vale can no longer be stopped. The princess says that it is their problem. If they do not let them go unpunished, there is no guarantee that it will not happen again. Vale addresses the thieves and says that they must be punished by death so that everyone knows what will happen if they invade their property. The group of thieves is shocked and very scared. They begin to cry and apologize, saying that they will end their careers right now. Balina's friend recalled something. She says she saw this group in the archives. This group is designed only for rich celebrities and merchants. The aristocrats they persecuted were usually corrupt and filled their pockets through taxes and bribes. The nobles whose deeds were exposed were shamed by the demon King Zedin. Vale says that those who invaded their lands should not be punished by death. She asks the thieves to prepare. Lord Color pauses for a moment, then confirms the princess's words. Lord Saint is going to pass judgment in the theft case and addresses the elven bandits who stole 8 tomatoes from their farm, saying that this is a serious crime. So they will all work for them. Belina listened carefully to Lord Saint Kedden's story, but then her facial expression changed. She was puzzled.